A word, deafening. Listen to those around the foreign language department. Students blush. Chinese department students are clenching their fists, chest out of Ganyun heroic.
It's true that there is no superiority in seeking knowledge.
I apologize for my slander of the Chinese department in the past.
Chinese and foreign languages can be classified, but there should be no difference between them.
If some of my previous opinions hurt any student in the Chinese department, I apologize to him. I'm sorry, there is no distinction between learning and knowledge. For their own future, to contribute to society, there is no difference between the noble and the humble. I hope that in the future, the students of Chinese department and our foreign language department can work together to make China have a more brilliant future, and let our long-standing civilization of China go to a broad stage. Under the shame, many students of foreign language department show their shame and sincerely apologize to the students of Chinese department. The Chinese department continues the spirit of China, and foreign languages bring you to see the outside world.
Let's join hands.
Yes, all we do is to seek knowledge.
We can learn more from each other in the future.
Refuel together, work together, strive for their own future, but also strive to make some modest contributions to society. Listening to the apologies, the students of the Chinese department felt happy that they were always pointing their fingers at the Chinese department and watching their apologies like a hillbilly. At the same time, they waved their hands and said genially.
For a moment, the atmosphere in the venue was extremely harmonious.
This scene makes people feel that the contradiction between Chinese department and foreign language department has never happened before. At the same time, many students pay more respect to Tian than praise him.
Tian won over Shenfei, but he didn't hold on to it. He belittled the foreign language department.
He said that the foreign language department was inferior to the Chinese department, or belittled the students of the foreign language department to nothing. On the contrary, he explained that whether the Chinese department or the foreign language department, it was for the sake of knowledge, and there was no difference between high and low. Such breadth of mind and boldness are really moving.
Not only these students, but also Tian Xiaoyu looks at Tian admiringly at the moment, his eyes changing.
Even at this moment, she suddenly did not regret that she put the letter in the pile of love letters. She felt that she had been in Nanhai University for so long, and now she finally met a boy worthy of her love letter. Tian, I sincerely hope that I can ask you more about how to exercise my memory when I have a chance.
I hope you can give me this opportunity.
Thinking of this, Tian Xiaoyu goes to Tian and reaches out his hand gracefully. His cheeks are slightly red with excitement and shyness, and his eyes are bright. Of course. But my memory method is a little special, it's not so easy to learn.
Tian nodded with a smile, holding Tian Xiaoyu's hand and shaking it gently. He doesn't feel bad about Tian Xiaoyu either. This girl is very smart and has a sense of propriety. Moreover, when she competes with Shenfei, she shows fairness and kindness, which is even more impressive. If the next contact makes him feel that Tian Xiaoyu is indeed a talent, he doesn't mind giving this beautiful and intelligent girl an extraordinary chance to become a member of the cultivator. I'm willing to work hard. Tian Xiaoyu said with a brilliant smile. Well, if I have a chance later, I'll give you the method. Tian smiles and looks around.
He finds that many other students have heard the news. After they start to come around here, he shakes his head with a bitter smile and says, but now I have to go first.
You go. Tian Xiaoyu looked around.
When he found the situation around him, he nodded with a smile and said.
Tian didn't have any hesitation. He bowed his head and walked in a hurry.
In the blink of an eye, he ran outside the campus. When the surroundings were finally quiet, he was relieved. At this moment, Tian can't help but sympathize with those little fresh meat. He is just entangled by his classmates in the school, and his head is as big as a fight. However, they are entangled by countless fans every day, and even some abnormal guys like to follow. A little bit of private life is infinitely enlarged and falls in the sun. It can be said that there is nothing wrong with them. Freedom ding ling ling. But just then, Tian's mobile phone suddenly rings, and the number of Qin Luotian is displayed on the screen.
What's the matter? Without thinking, Tian gets through the phone and asks.
I had a dream, a strange and terrible dream. After a long time, the voice of Qin Luotian came from the phone. The tone of the voice was a little shaken. Even from a long distance, Tian felt that he seemed to see Qin Luoshan's pale face in cold sweat.
What dream? Or the dream related to Ning Yao and Fong Cun's spiritual realm? Tian listens to Qin Luo's voice and asks curiously. The dream of Qin Luoshan often shows Ning Yao's memory, so he thinks that the dream of Qin Luoshan now is probably the reappearance of some terrible memories of Ning Yao.
I dreamt that I was sitting in front of a mirror.
The person in the mirror was Ning Yao, not me she. Qin Luoshan's voice was low and uneasy.
After a long silence, he said slowly, her condition is very bad. It seems that she is in danger. Although she didn't tell me anything in the mirror, I can feel that she seems to be asking for help from me, or with the help of me, to you.
Ning Yao appears in the mirror. Moreover, Ning Yao's condition is very bad.
She seems to be in danger. She asks for help from Qin Luo. God Tian is astonished. The situation of Qin Luo's dream is what he didn't expect. Moreover, he thought carefully, and did not expect that Ning Yao had ever encountered such a thing.
Can it be that you are too tired recently, and you lose too much energy, so you have such a dream?
After a little silence, Tian said slowly to Qin Luo. God. He doubted that the dream of Qin Luoshan had no real meaning. It was just because Ning Yao and Qin Luoshan were one, and now she began to take over the Qin family. She was exhausted and had such a strange nightmare. No, it won't. This dream, like those of my past, is very real, as if it had happened. Qin Luoshan firmly denied Tian's words, and then slowly said, and I can be sure that the person in the mirror is Ning Yao. I can't tell what it feels like, but I can be sure that she is asking for help.
Ning Yao is asking for help.
Tian listened to this, in the heart could not help but have a sense of absurdity.
Ning Yao and Qin Luoshan are one, but Ning Yao's memory is sleeping.
According to the common sense, Ning Yao would not encounter any problems under such circumstances, but Qin Luoshan is firm now, and doesn't seem to be joking with himself at all. This strange dream makes Tian a little confused at the moment, and he feels confused about the situation.
Are there any strange people around you recently? Is Ning Yao warning you?
Tian ponders for a long time and asks Qin Luoshan again for confirmation.
No, I can be sure that the person who will be in danger is Ning Yao, not me.
Qin Luoshan denied Tian's conjecture without thinking, and was determined to be incomparable.
It's not a warning. What's wrong with Ning Yaoqian's memory and Qin Luoshan?
Tian frowned. In addition to doubt, there was a kind of bad feeling.
He knew that Qin Luoshan would not be alarmist. She must be very sure now.
However, the memory of Ning Yao is hidden in the memory of Qin Luo. God. How can she ask for help from Qin Luo? God? But Tian knows that no matter what the truth of this matter is, the most urgent thing is to let Qin Luo. God come to his side, or go to Jiangnan again, and carefully explore the spirit of Qin Luo. God to determine whether it is a false alarm or a real mistake.
Otherwise, I'll go to Nanhai. Maybe it will be safer for Ning Yao.
And just when Tian was ready to speak, Qin Luo suddenly felt a little uneasy. In fact, Qin Luoshan can't be sure what the dream really means, and she suspects that she has a dream at night because she thinks about it every day. After all, during the period when Tian left, she has been struggling in her heart.
If she likes Tian, what should she do?
Even, she suspected that the danger of Ning Yao in her dream was the memory of Ning Yao in her body, and she realized her mind. But there is no doubt that she really hopes to see Tian again.
Moreover, she hopes to be no longer in Jiangnan, but in Nanhai.
She wants to see more places where Tian grew up, get familiar with the traces of Tian's life, and learn more about Tian.
Good.
When you come, let Dazhuang, Jiangming or Fangzhong accompany you. Tian knows that his side is the safest place for Ning Yao.
After hearing the words, he doesn't think so much.
He immediately agrees and tells Qin Luo. God.
Well, I'll take Li Dazhuang with me. I guess I can get to Nanhai in the evening. Qin Luoshan nodded and hung up. What is the meaning of this dream? Tian put down his cell phone and frowned.
Ning Yao's memory lies in the body of Qin Luo. God. Now, Ning Yao's memory suddenly warns, and makes Qin Luo. God feel that it is Ning Yao, not Qin Luo. God, who will encounter danger, which makes Tian feel confused.
Everything will be clear when Qin Luo comes.
Yi Tian pondered for a long time, but he didn't figure it out, so he reached out and rubbed his eyebrows. Then he went back to the rented house and began to practice. No matter what the meaning of this dream is, only when his strength becomes strong can it be properly solved. At the same time, after dealing with the affairs of the Qin family, Qin Luoshan explained a few words to Mr. Qin. When the route of the private plane was approved, he took a plane to the South China Sea.
It took several hours to fly from Jiangnan to Nanhai.
After the plane took off, Qin Luoshan held his amulet and fell asleep. As for Li Dazhuang, it was only after Qin Luoshan fell asleep that he crept up and walked to the bathroom in front of the engine room.
Bang!
But when he came to the bathroom door, the door of the bathroom opened from inside without waiting for him to reach out. A middle-aged man and an old man were looking at him with a playful smile.
"Who are you?"
When Li Dazhuang saw them, his eyes were awe-inspiring. As he retreated quickly, he yelled to the cabin, "Miss Qin." Just now, he has realized that these two people are two mountain people, and their cultivation strength is not weak. The middle-aged man is the peak of the prefecture level. As for the old man, he is even stronger than the peak of the prefecture level.
I'm afraid he is the legendary god-level old monster. Noisy!
But without waiting for him to shout out, the old man was already humming and clapping at him. Li Dazhuang had no time to make any response, so he fell on the ground and fainted.
Local chicken and dog. The old man looked at the paralyzed Li Dazhuang with disdain.
Then he took the middle-aged man and went to the engine room.
"Who are you?"
At this time, when Qin Luoshan heard Li Dazhuang's voice, she had already woken up from her sleep and wanted to look forward. But as soon as she untied her seatbelt and got up, she saw the middle-aged and old people coming towards her.
There's something wrong with these two people.
When Qin Luoshan saw them, the corner of his eye immediately drew back, and at the same time, he trembled.
"Miss Qin, you'd better be calm and don't move, otherwise, you'll have to suffer."
The middle-aged man glanced at Qin Luoshan and said with a smile,
"What do you want to do?"
Qin Luoshan fully understood that the two men were coming for her, and she had no resistance in front of them. She slowly sat back and stared at them. "We are members of Qingming's sect.
The young master of my family heard that Yi Tian, the guy who helped Miss Qin to solve your problems, has great ability, so he wants to invite Miss Qin to Qingming's sect for 2 days.
The middle-aged man saw Qin Luoshan sitting back, looked at her with a smile and said slowly,
"Qingming's."
When Qin Luo heard these 3 words, his heart sank suddenly. Then he looked at them and said slowly, "You Qingmingzong will regret what you have done and pay the price of bleeding. You don't have to worry about these things, Miss Qin. Since our young master arranged for us to come here, he naturally made all the preparations." The middle-aged man raised his eyebrows and gave a calm smile.
He didn't care about the threat of Qin Luoshan. Qin Luoshan stares at these two people tightly, confused. He doesn't know how to deal with them.
At the same time, he can't help feeling confused. According to Ning Yao's warning in the dream, the person who is in trouble should be Ning Yao, who is hidden in her soul. But now, it seems that the person who is in trouble is the god of Qin Luo.
Don't talk nonsense with her. Go to inform the captain.
If he wants his wife and children to live, he can change the route and go to Qilu. At this time, the old man sat beside Qin Luoshan, then looked at the middle-aged man and said, "Yes." The middle-aged man saluted the old man in awe, then turned and walked towards the cockpit. "Contact Yi Tian, he can defend the sword, maybe he can save himself." Qin Luoshan's eyes changed. He suddenly made a decision in his heart. He put his hand in his pocket and wanted to dial Yi Tian's number blindly. Then he tried to let him know that he was in trouble and let him save himself.
"What are you doing? If you don't want to die, take out your things right away."
The old man, as an old monster of heaven level, is extremely observant.
As soon as Qin Luoshan dials Yi Tian's number, he notices something strange.
He stares at Qin Luoshan's hand hidden in his pants pocket and cheers coldly. Qin Luoshan gritted his teeth and could only take the mobile phone out of his pocket and put it in front of the old man.
"Call to warn, Miss Qin, don't you forget that we are high above the sky. Even if he receives your call for help, he can't save you."
The old man saw the number, sneered, then pressed the hang-up button, and then put the mobile phone into his pocket.
No matter whether you can succeed or not, you can't wait to die. Try everything.
Qin Luotian coldly responds, but he secretly prays in his heart that Yi Tian will find something wrong after seeing the phone, and then the imperial sword comes here to save himself from this man.
Bang!
But just then, along the cockpit, there was a dull sound, followed by the sound of heavy objects falling to the ground.
Damn it! The next second, the middle-aged man's angry voice rang out. What's the matter?
Hearing this, the old man suddenly sank in his heart, quickly got up, looked at the cockpit and asked aloud. That guy is hiding behind the cockpit door, trying to attack me with a fire extinguisher. The next second, the middle-aged man with blood all over his head came out of the cockpit.
His face was gloomy and he said, "You didn't do anything to him, did you?"
Hearing this, the old man suddenly changed his face. Looking at the middle-aged man, he cheered coldly.
I killed him." The middle-aged man was full of chagrin and uneasiness, gnashing his teeth.
When the captain smashed the fire extinguisher, his instinct was to clap it with all his strength, which shattered the captain's heart and lungs. Damn it! As soon as the old man's face sank, there was no calmness of the heaven-level master, and he looked around anxiously. It's true that he is a powerful old monster, but that doesn't mean he can do anything.
At least, he can't do it anyway.
Now that the captain is dead, there are only 2 of them, Qin Luotian, and 3 of them. What's the difference between staying in a plane flying high in the sky and losing the captain and staying in a coffin that dream? It seems right if I die. Ning Yao will no longer exist, however. In this way, I don't have to worry anymore. If I like Yi Tian, what should I do? Qin Luotian's face turned pale when he heard this. His fingers held the amulet tightly and his mouth was full of bitter smile. You did a good job. After staring at the engine room for a circle, the old man yelled at the prefecture-level peak, then turned his head and looked at Qin Luotian, and said in a deep voice, "Where is the parachute?"
"At the present altitude of the plane, if you parachute down, you will surely die."
Qin Luotian held the amulet tightly, looked at the old man and said calmly. Thinking that if he died, he would not have to worry about loving Yi Tian as much as Ning Yao, and he would not have to think about the problem that if Ning Yao occupied the body, he would no longer exist. Qin Luo suddenly felt that his heart became very calm. She felt that after death, if there will be an afterlife, she will no longer be the carrier of Ning Yao's soul. Maybe, she can like Yi Tian more recklessly. This woman, dying, how can she be so calm? The old man looked at Qin Luotian suspiciously. When he saw her hand and squeezed something tightly, he immediately said, "What's in your hand?" "Hand it in, this thing can't save our lives." Qin Luo spread out his hand and revealed his amulet. He said with a sad smile, "A broken amulet." The heaven-level old man thought that Qin Luotian was so nervous, holding something that would save his life. But when he saw that it was just a talisman, his face immediately turned cold, and the murderous opportunity appeared. Looking at Qin Luotian, he raised his hand and gritted his teeth and said, "It's all you, cheap woman. If it wasn't for you, how could I end up like this? Elderly, she is the principal of Shaozone." When the middle-aged people see the behavior of the elder, they immediately dissuade them. Little lord? I don't care whether Limuran is the little master or the master. With a ferocious smile and a surge of strength, the heaven-level old man would slap the Qin Luo god who led him into such a dangerous situation to death. Qin Luo god fearlessly closed his eyes. The plane fell as dead, was killed as also dead. Death is no different. Elderly, if you just kill such a beautiful woman, it's a pity. Since there's no hope, why don't you let me be romantic first and be a ghost under the peony flower? But at this time, the middle-aged man suddenly stopped the old man, looked up and down at Qin Luo god, swallowed his saliva and said, "It's not that he has never seen a beautiful woman, nor has he ever occupied a beautiful woman, but it's the first time for him to see a woman like Qin Luotian, who just looks at it and feels relaxed, happy and amazing." Before, because Qin Luo god was Qingming sect, after the drastic change, Limuran changed himself. After he became the little lord from the first Daozi, he named the important people. Although he coveted it, he didn't dare to make a fool of it. But now, as the old man said, the plane is out of control and is about to crash. He doesn't care whether Limuran is the little master or the master. He is not much better than that. To you?
Do you think I feel weak when I am a little older?
Hearing the middle-aged man's words, the old man's eyes fell on Qin Luoshan's cheek. After greedy looking, he said with a ferocious smile.
Elderly, you'll take the lead first, and I'll do it again, just to appreciate your majesty.
Although the middle-aged people are not happy, they are not the opponent of the old man. They scold their mother in their heart and say respectfully on their face.
Don't you think about it.
Qin Luoshan heard the conversation between them, his cheeks turned pale, and he yelled in a cold voice. She was not afraid of death, but even if she died, she could not be defiled by these two animals.
Who do you think you are? It's an honor for you to accompany me for a while before you die.
Dare to resist and seek death.
The heaven-level old man was very angry.
Now he heard that Qin Luoshan dared to resist. He immediately raised his hand and patted Qin Luoshan's head. He wanted to knock her unconscious so that he could do things by himself.
Bang!
But just as the hand of the heaven-level old man was about to fall on Qin Luo's head, a clear light curtain suddenly appeared along Qin Luo's body. The light curtain was very strange. It was very thin and transparent, but it was very tough. The old man's palm fell down, not only failed to stun Qin Luogod, but his body flew upside down and hit the cabin glass heavily.
Click click. What's more terrifying is that the strength of the rebound was so terrible that when he hit the glass, the solid double-layer glass burst open.
Immediately after that, a terrible suction enveloped his whole body.
Ah!
The old man just had time to let out a howl, and the whole person immediately became like a stretched and deformed ramen, pulled out of the window by the completely unbalanced air pressure inside and outside the cabin. Then the whole person, like a piece of paper, was swept into the distant clouds by the terrible airflow.
What's on this woman?
The middle-aged man was completely stunned, and looked at the old man in horror. He couldn't understand that with Elder Li's amazing strength, how could he be bounced away by Qin Luo, who had no breath of cultivator?
It can't be said that the strength of Qin Luogod has actually reached an amazing level that neither he nor Elder Li can realize?
But without waiting for him to think more, the airflow whistling along the cabin window immediately pulled him to the broken window with great traction.
No!
The middle-aged man was terrified and reached out to grab the seat beside him, hoping to resist the traction of the terrible airflow. Hiss hiss, but the traction of the airflow was too terrible. Although his hand held the corner of the seat tightly, under the influence of that terrible force, his body was still a little weightless, his legs flew towards the window, and finally half of his body floated outside the cabin.
Please, help!
The middle-aged man looked at his fingers sliding away from the corner of the seat bit by bit because of the terrible traction of the airflow.
He was scared to cry.
He looked at Qin Luoshan and cried for help. Wheezing, but without waiting for him to say I, the terrible pulling force dragged his body and directly pulled his upper body out of the cabin. Immediately, like a leaf, it was stirred by the air and then dropped into the clouds behind him.
This.
Qin Luo looked at this scene with a face full of disbelief. Just for a moment, she thought that she was afraid that she could not escape the two men's clutches, but unexpectedly, the amulet that Tian gave her saved her once again and helped her keep her innocence. Wheezing at the same time, the terrible draft force swept through the cabin. Although Qin Luoshan was wearing a seatbelt, he still felt that his body seemed to be the rope of tug-of-war, the carrier of the wrestling between the seatbelt and the draft, and the pain of tearing his body.
Boom! Boom!
Not only that, under the impact of this terrible airflow, the plane began to shake violently at the moment, making people feel that it is possible to disintegrate in the air at any time.
Even if you want to die, you can't die here. Qin Luoshan gritted his teeth and didn't dare to hesitate anymore. He reached under the seat and took out the parachute.
After tying it to his body, he stuffed the amulet into his clothes and pressed it tightly to his chest. Then he closed his eyes and reached out to open the buckle of his seatbelt. Wheezing in a twinkling, Qin Luoshan was whirled by a sharp spiral air, and then she was thrown out of the cabin. Just a few seconds later, her body turned into a small black spot and was thrown into the wet clouds. The terrible impact of the air made Qin Luoshan feel as if he had been punched heavily in his stomach, and his eyes turned black. Taking advantage of the last chance of consciousness, she raised her hand and suddenly pulled at the parachute belt hanging on her chest.
Bang!
In a flash, a white parachute, like a cotton ball, dragged the completely comatose Qin Luo god under the wind, and quickly floated to the distance.
Boom!
Almost at the same time when she flew out, there was a spark on the head of the plane in the distance. In a moment, the plane hovering in the sky was like a hard rock exhausted after being thrown out. It was hurled downward.
Something happened to Qin Luo god.
At the same time, in Nanhai rental house, Tian saw Qin Luoshan's abrupt call and then hung up.
Without any hesitation, he called back.
What surprised him was that after the call, although he was able to get through, no one answered. It's not only Qin Luoshan who calls Li Dazhuang, it's the same. He knows that Qin Luoshan travels on private planes, not ordinary flights. On private planes, she is allowed to make a phone call. Even if Qin Luoshan dials the phone by mistake, she will certainly get through when she sees herself going back.
There must be something wrong with her not answering the phone now.
Especially after a moment, Tian dials Qin Luoshan and Li Dazhuang again, only to find that the voice from the other side of the phone has turned into the other side is not in the service area, which confirms his conjecture.
Fang Zhong, has Luoshan set out?
Without any hesitation, he immediately called Fang Zhong to inquire.
Miss Qin started an hour ago.
I personally put her and Li Dazhuang on the plane and watched the plane take off before coming back.
Count the time, she should be almost over Minchi now. Fang Zhong responds to Yi Tian's words, but he can't help being suspicious. Yi Tian wants to know the location of Qin Luoshan. He just calls Qin Luoshan and Li Dazhuang. Why do we have to go around here? Something's wrong.
Yi Tian heard Fang Zhong's reply, his heart sank suddenly, trembling.
1 hour after the plane took off, it was in the stratosphere. Qin Luoshan couldn't not answer the phone, and even if Qin Luoshan didn't answer, Li Dazhuang couldn't.
The only explanation was what happened to the plane.
What do you mean, master?
Hearing this, Fang Zhong's heart suddenly sank and asked in a hurry.
Help me contact the air traffic control department immediately.
I want to know the route of Luoshan's plane and the last time they contacted the ground. Besides, don't tell Master Qin about it for the time being.
Yi Tianshan said.
Before Qin, he was poisoned by Kun Wuxia, and his constitution was weak. In addition, the person who poisoned him was his grandson, and his spirit suffered a huge blow. If at this moment, let him know that Qin Luoshan's plane may have an accident.
It's hard to guarantee that he will not be able to withstand the blow, never get sick, or even worse.
Okay, I see. I'll get in touch as soon as possible.
Master, don't worry. Miss Qin is very lucky. She will be fine.
Fang Zhong was very clear about the importance Yi Tian attached to Qin Luo god. After hearing the words, he nodded his head without thinking, and then relieved.
I hope it's a false alarm. Yi Tian shook his head and hung up the phone.
Without any hesitation, he directly bought himself tickets for the latest high-speed train to Minchi several times. Then, while waiting for the news, he turned on the news channel of the TV, searched for the local news web page in western Fujian, kept refreshing, and tried to find the whereabouts of the plane from the news. If there is a problem with such a large plane, no one can see it. At this moment, the only thing that makes Yi Tian feel a little confident is that he made an amulet for Qin Luo god with congenital spirit wood. With that amulet, even if Qin Luoshan was in such danger, he might be seriously injured, but at least he could save his life.
There is an urgent message.
Over our city, a small passenger plane crashed. One of the wounded on the plane has been sent to the hospital, and the rest of the passengers are temporarily missing. A moment later, Yi Tian found a piece of news on the news channel in western Fujian.
Boom!
See the moment of this few numbers, Yi Tian just feel his head immediately buzz a sound, as if to explode the same. He guessed that there was something wrong with the plane, but he didn't expect that the plane actually crashed.
Could it be that the dream that Qin Luoshan told himself, in which Ningyao warned, was a premonition that this had happened?
However, it was Qin Luoshan who caused the damage. According to Qin Luoshan's statement at that time, Ningyao's warning signs indicated that he would be in danger. Ding ling ling at this time, Yi Tian's mobile phone suddenly rings, showing the number of Fang Zhong.
Master, I just contacted the Air Traffic Control Bureau. Miss Qin's plane had an accident over the west of Fujian. The person rescued from the plane was Dezhuang. Miss Qin is missing.
Dezhuang is now in the first hospital of Minchi City, but he is still in a coma and doesn't know what happened.
After the phone is connected, there comes a fiery voice from Fangzhong. The man saved is Li Dezhuang. Qin Luoshan is missing? Yi Tian's heart jerked out at the sound. He thought that the survivor mentioned in the news was Qin Luoshan wearing an amulet, but he didn't expect that it would be Li Dezhuang. However, when he left Jiangnan last time, for the safety of Li Dezhuang and others, he did make amulets for them. Although he was not as powerful as Qin Luoshan, he also had excellent ability to protect his body. Li Dezhuang's amulet is not as good as Qin Luoshan's, so Qin Luoshan will be okay. Okay, I know. I'll go to Minchi now. Remember what I said, I'll keep it from Mr. Qin for the time being.
If he asks about Luoshan, he will say that Luoshan and I have been out of the sea for a while, but we can't get in touch for the time being. Yi Tianyan gave Fangzhong a simple and comprehensive advice, then hung up the phone, came to the cicada's home, gave 2 simple explanations, and drove to the high-speed railway station, took the nearest high-speed railway, and drove to the west of Fujian. More than 2 hours later, the high-speed railway stopped at Minchi Station. After walking out of the high-speed railway station, Yi Tian took a taxi and went straight to Minchi First Hospital.
Doctor, what's the situation of the survivor of the plane crash? Are you awake? What's his status? Is he a crew member or a passenger? Did you find any other passengers on the plane besides him?
As soon as Yi Tiangang came to the gate of Minchi First Hospital, he saw a group of reporters around several doctors asking questions. I'm sorry, the patient is still in ICU for care. We don't know his specific identity, and we only found him on the plane, but no other passengers. The doctor turned to the microphone and said in a loud voice.
ICU ward. When Yi Tian hears the news, he walks into the hospital building in a hurry. With a glance, he goes straight to the ICU ward floor. When he walked out of the elevator, he immediately saw that several police officers in police uniforms were guarding the door of a ward, and a group of people were talking to each other. In the hospital, there is no doubt that Li Dezhuang is the one who will have this kind of standard guard. Without any hesitation, Yi Tian quickly walked to the door of the ward, looked inside, and immediately saw that Li Dezhuang was full of tubes, closed his eyes, and lay pale on the bed. But in his body, did not see any traces of trauma. Sorry, no one is allowed to come near here. Please leave. Seeing Yi Tian's action, the police officers immediately stood up and asked Yi Tian to leave. I know the people in the ward, and I can wake him up. Life matters. Please forgive me.
Yi Tiancheng said sincerely that he was going to screw the door of the ward.
I warn you, be honest with me and don't mess about.
Several police officers see this, immediately reach out to Yi Tian to catch, want to press him to the ground.
Bang!
Yi Tian frowned slightly, raised his hand, overturned several police officers to the ground, then stretched out his hand to open the door and strode in. This guy, how so much strength, so many people, can't hold him. Several police officers kneed their aching bodies and looked at the direction of the gate in disbelief. In addition to the chest suffered a heavy blow, the whole body in addition to a few fractures, no other fatal injuries, coma is also because of this hit hurt the heart. However, this heavy blow is not like the impact that the plane suffered when it fell, but like.
Yi Tianyuan's eye opened and glanced at Li Dezhuang's body.
His eyes sank immediately. As he was killing, he murmured, the means of mountain people. The plane crash is actually the handwriting of the mountain people.
Was Qin Luo God taken away by the mountain people who attacked Li Dezhuang?
At the same time, Yi Tian's mind is full of doubts. But he knew that as long as Li Dezhuang sobered up, he could get answers.
Without any hesitation, Yi Tian immediately put his hand on Li Dezhuang's pulse gate and put a pure magic power into his body. Dezhuang, wake up. Not only that, but Yi Tian also used his mind to awaken the spirit and preach to Li Dezhuang. In less than a few seconds, Li Dezhuang's fingers twitched a few times, followed by blinking eyelids, and slowly opened his eyes. Woo! When he saw Yi Tian, Li Dezhuang immediately began to speak, but now he had a pipe in his mouth and couldn't make a sound at all. It's okay, don't worry. Seeing this, Yi Tian raised his hand and pulled out the oxygen mask and pipe covered on Li Dezhuang's face. What are you doing? Do you know that extubation will kill a patient in his present condition?
At this time, several policemen and doctors rushed in. When Tian pulled out the pipe in Li Dazhuang's mouth, the doctor behind the policeman immediately shivered and said angrily,
"Master, Miss Qin is in danger. One day an old monster sneaked into the plane and knocked me unconscious. I don't know what happened after that."
At the same time, Li Dazhuang's lips moved back and forth, telling Tian his last memory on the plane.
What? People not only do not die, but wake up? Li Dazhuang's words fell down, and the police and doctors were dumbfounded.
Especially the doctor who yelled at Tian before, his face was full of embarrassment and shock.
It's really a mountain man. And it's heaven level. Tian's eyes are awe-inspiring.
Li Dazhuang's words completely confirmed his previous conjecture that this matter was really related to the mountain people.
Is that God Luo taken away by those people, or? Immediately after that, Tian continues to inquire about Li Dazhuang's nervousness. I don't know. I don't know what happened after the coma.
Li Dazhuang shook his head and said in confusion.
Are there other passengers on the plane?
Besides him, we found a dead captain on the plane. However, we investigated the cause of the plane crash. It was because the cabin glass was broken, resulting in the imbalance of airflow.
Could the passengers you mentioned be thrown out by the airflow?
But at this time, a policeman who was listening to the conversation between Tian and Li Dazhuang blurted out.
The captain's dead?
The cause of the plane crash was a broken cabin window.
Tian looked at the policeman in consternation.
For a moment, he felt that Fong Cun was in a mess at the moment. If it's just a simple plane crash, Qin Luo, under the protection of the amulet, should still have a chance to survive. But if the amulet is thrown out by the air, then if the amulet is also blown off by the strong air, or there are other situations, then Qin Luo God will not have any chance of survival. Moreover, judging from the cause of the broken cabin window, there should have been fierce fighting in the cabin before the plane crash.
Qin Luoshan has no accomplishments.
In this way, the heaven-level old monster and the prefecture-level peak will not fight against her under normal circumstances, unless one of them kills the captain by mistake. Then they think that there is no hope of survival, so they have a bad idea about Qin Luoshan, which leads to internal strife. Or they want to hurt Qin Luoshan, and the result is that they have no hope of survival. The talisman is activated and the force rebounds. But regardless of the two possibilities, Qin Luoshan's current situation must be extremely bad.
Before we found the wreckage of the plane, did anyone call to inform you that parachutes were found around, or something jumped down?
Read here, Tian immediately nervous looking at the several police officers, deep voice Wei.
No.
Without thinking, the police officer shook his head, saying that he had not received similar news.
Where did Qin Luo God go?
Tian is so upset that his brows are twisted into a deep Sichuan character. The plane crashed in the suburb of western Fujian. According to the route, it should pass through the Jiushi primeval forest.
If you can't find people, you can go there to have a look.
However, the primeval forest has an area of more than 10,000 hectares, covering a large area, and 95% of the area has not been developed.
People really fall in it.
What do you want to find? It's hard to. In looking at Tian's appearance, a police officer can't help but sympathize with Tian and give him a guess. However, at the end of the speech, his voice gradually becomes smaller, and finally he wants to say nothing. Although he didn't finish his words, Tian understood that he meant that if people were really sucked out of the cabin window by the airflow, then the chance of survival was almost zero.
Thank you very much. Tian said sincerely to the policeman, then looked at Li Dazhuang and said, You're good.
I'll go to find her. I didn't take good care of Miss Qin. Li Dazhuang felt sorry when he heard this.
You're not to blame for this. Don't have any psychological burden.
Take good care of yourself. Tian shakes his head at him, then goes out of the ward, opens the map, finds out the location of Jiushi primeval forest, and rushes to the roof of the hospital building. If you go to Jiushi primeval forest by car, the speed is too slow.
He can't tolerate it.
The flying of Imperial Sword is faster. Qin Luo's hand was powerless. Even because of the amulet, he barely saved his life. But once he fell into the virgin forest,
the probability of survival was very small. Why don't you tell him about Death Valley when you let him go to Joshi Primeval Forest? And just as Yi Tian leaves the ward, along the ward, another policeman reminds Yi Tian of something and says in an urgent voice, "I'll go." The policeman's face suddenly changed when he heard this. He gave a low scold. Then he pushed the door open and ran quickly to the stairwell. But to his surprise, when he got to the elevator, he found that the elevator was still standing on this floor, motionless, even the falling light was not pressed. Not only that, when he looked down the stairway, he found that it was quiet as if no one had been here. That kid, is the world evaporated? Looking at this scene, the police officer shuddered and suddenly felt a little hairy. Immediately, he went back to the ward, looked at Li Dazhuang and said, "Do you remember the telephone number of the man just now? Give me a call as soon as possible, otherwise, once he bumps into the Valley of Death, it will be too late." I didn't remember his number. Li Dazhuang shook his head. He didn't have the habit of remembering numbers. It's over. Hearing this, the policeman ran to the window with a thump and looked down. But after a circle, he still didn't find Yi Tian's shadow. His face was full of panic and tension, and he murmured, "Death Valley, barren land, entrance, no survivors." Once Yi Tian goes to the Joshi Primeval Forest according to his guidance, he doesn't know anything and runs into the Valley of Death. As long as a living creature enters, even if it turns into a white bone, he can't get out. Isn't it that the person he's looking for doesn't find it, instead, he will lose a human life? Don't worry, they are powerful. You can't defeat him with the problems you mentioned. But just then, Li Dazhuang suddenly looked at the nervous police officers and said slowly. Although he did not know what the Valley of Death was, he believed that whether it was the Valley of Death or the Valley of Evil Spirits, with Yi Tian's ability, he would return safely. You have so much faith in him? The policeman looked at Li Dazhuang in surprise. Well. Li Dazhuang nodded slowly and murmured, "Because he is Yi Tian." Yi Tian, what's wrong with that name? The constable was perplexed and didn't understand why Li Dazhuang thought nothing would happen by this name. But they did not know that Li Dazhuang still had a few words to say. The original words in his heart were, "Because he is Yi Tian, the omnipotent Yi Tian." Zheng. On the rooftop of the hospital, Yi Tian's magic power runs, and the flying sword suddenly rises into the air, turning into a streamer and rushing to the Joshi Primeval Forest. An hour later, Yi Tian came to the Joshi Primeval Forest, and kept circling and calling along the forest. Unfortunately, Joshi Primeval Forest belongs to that kind of tropical rainforest. Looking from a high place, tall trees block out the sky and the sun, all of them are luxuriant. He couldn't see anything below. Although he wandered back and forth, he didn't find anything unusual and soon felt that the mana couldn't support it. This situation made him anxious, but there was nothing he could do. At this moment, he only hates that his cultivation is too low, not to mention the Yupu realm, even the Longmen realm and the Jindan realm. As long as he spreads his mind, he can cover the primeval forest and find out if Qin Luo is here. But now, with the strength of the fifth floor of his cave, the mind is scattered, covering an area of 100 meters at most, and cannot be used continuously, otherwise, it will cause great damage to the mind. It seems that the method of imperial sword exploration is not feasible. Even in this primeval forest, Qin Luoshan may be unconscious because of falling from a high altitude, so he can't respond to his call. Then go into the primeval forest and look for every inch of land. As long as she walks through it, she will leave traces. Soon, Yi Tian squeezed his fingers, made a decision, pressed the flying sword, entered the primeval forest, and then began to search along the river. Giving up these two words doesn't exist in his dictionary, let alone the fact that it's not others who are in danger now, but the god of Qin Luo who is one with Ning Yao. Even if he digs 3 feet, he must find the god of Qin Luo. At the same time, deep in the primeval forest, when Qin Luoshan wakes up from the vertigo thrown from the sky, he feels hot and humid, just like lying in a pot of boiling water. Not only that, his face is itchy. The strange itch made her instinctively raise her hand and sweep towards her cheek. But when she swept, her fingertips felt a cold, greasy and creepy strange feeling.
A lizard. The strange touch made her open her eyes immediately, and then she saw that the lizard she had swept down from her face with her hands was actually a palm-long lizard with colorful scales and dark purple letters. This picture makes her, who has been extremely afraid of reptiles such as snakes and lizards since she was a child, feel that her hair is standing up. Fortunately, the lizard's courage is also very small. When she swept down from the face, ran away in a hurry, rustling into the grass not far away. Whew! Qin Luotian breathed a long sigh of relief. When she breathed it out, she suddenly found that her body was a little more strange. Her voice was like being filled with dry sawdust. She couldn't make any sound. Even if she breathed out, it was extremely painful. When she saw the lizard, she opened her mouth, but she didn't make a sound at all. She just thought that she made a sound because she was scared. It should be when falling from a high place, the impact of airflow caused serious injury to the throat. Soon, Qin Luotian understood what was the reason for this situation. But for this injury, she did not care about anything. Jumping from the stratospheric plane can still live well. This in the history of aviation absolutely can be regarded as a miracle. He saved me again. When she felt the warm and comfortable qi coming from her chest, she immediately realized that she could survive not because of her great fortune, but because of the amulet that Yi Tian gave her. In this way, Yi Tian has saved himself twice. No, not twice, 3 times. In addition to blocking bullets at the birthday party in this time, he also helped himself get rid of his long-cherished fate of marrying Li Fan Yuan. After all, what's the difference between marrying such a rubbish and dying? Since he let me live, I want to live, I want to see him, I want to tell him everything in my heart. Thinking of this, Qin Luo's heart suddenly felt unwilling to let death control him. Instead, he sprouted an unprecedented courage to see Yi Tian and pour out his feelings for the rest of his life. Live and see him again. Qin Luotian murmured to himself, 5 fingers slowly squeezed tightly, and then began to look at his present situation. No wonder it's wet and hot, so it is. When she straightened her head, the corners of her mouth could not help but show a wry smile. At this moment, because of the tearing of the airflow, the parachute, which has been broken for a few years, is covering her. It seems that there was a short rain just now, which made her feel like sleeping in a hot water bag. The noodles are the same. Except for his hoarse voice, he didn't get hurt all over his body. It's incredible. Then, after struggling to get out of the parachute and trying to move his body, Qin Luotian was surprised to find that his whole body was intact. Then he took the amulet out of his chest to see what it was like now. Split. I hope I will never use it again, so I can wear it all the time. Qin Luotian glanced over. When he saw that there was a crack as thick as hair on the amulet, and the color became dim from the previous light green. After a few minutes, his face immediately showed a strong color of regret. Then he grasped it with his hands and carefully wore it close to his body. This is the first gift Yi Tian gave her. She doesn't want this precious first gift to be completely destroyed in her own hands. It's like a tropical rainforest here. I don't know. Is it on the island or in the west of Fujian? After that, she looked around. When she found that there were many tall trees growing around, and there were many lianas and ferns attached to them. When she looked around, all she could see was that there were countless dense green thick nets hanging around. She immediately had a general judgment of her current position. This kind of situation let her can't help a little confused and helpless. No matter where it is, go out since he let you live, you should cherish this chance to live. But soon, Qin Luotian shook his head, clenched his fist, quietly cheered himself up. After listening carefully, he walked toward the area where the faint sound of water came. She remembers that when she watched the Discovery Channel on TV before, she once saw that if you get lost in the rainforest, you should walk along the river. Only in this way can you survive and get out of the rainforest. The more you go forward, the clearer the sound of the water, which makes Qin Luotian's originally tense heart suddenly become a little relaxed. Boom! But just then, along the bushes not far from her, there was a sudden sound of heavy objects falling to the ground. When she turned to look at it, when she found that it was a tattered corpse covered with black ants and green flies, her mouth opened wide and gave out a silent exclamation. This is the body of the middle-aged man. Immediately after that, Qin Luotian judged from the broken clothes on the corpse that the corpse was the middle-aged man who wanted to plot against him on the plane. However, this guy's mouth is wide open now, and his face is frozen by the expression of fear.
Moreover, his trunk along the waist has disappeared.
I don't know whether he was eaten by wild animals or pulled off because of the terrible traction of the airflow. If there is no Yi Tian, he is what I am now looking at this scene. Qin Luoshan was thrilled. At the same time, he could not help holding the amulet hanging on his chest. He just felt that there was a warm current in his heart. After avoiding the corpse, Qin Luo God soon came to the river in the rainforest. Because there was a rainstorm just now, the water in the river was very muddy, and there were some rotten wood-like things floating. If it was normal, Qin Luoshan would stay away from such water, but now listening to the hualala sound of water, she could not help her dry mouth, and her sore throat became more intense. After she was thrown out of the cabin, she did not know how many times she screamed in the sky. She was already thirsty. Even though the river was only muddy water, she remembered that she had seen it on the Discovery Channel. She said that the water in the river in the rainforest contained a lot of bacteria, and it was easy to have diarrhea when she drank it, but she still wanted to drink some to moisten her throat. Just a little to moisten your throat. After hesitating for a long time, Qin Luoshan still couldn't resist the temptation. He walked to the river carefully, bowed down, and took a handful of water to his mouth. Even the turbid river makes her feel as delicious as rain after entering. On this side of the river, there are all kinds of ferns. It's hard to walk. The opposite side should be a little flat. Maybe you can jump from the river to the opposite side. After a mouthful, Qin Luoshan resisted the urge to drink a little more. After glancing at the opposite bank, he began to rest and ponder the possibility of jumping over the river. But at this time, those sections of dead trees floating in the river were slowly coming to her. Put these dead trees together and step on them, but why do they look so strange, like a knot in one's heart? When Qin Luoshan saw the dead wood, he couldn't help but move. He just wanted to find a branch to pull it over. But when he looked at it carefully, he felt that the dead wood was different from the wood he had seen. Wow! Almost at the same time that she was puzzled, the dead trees suddenly rushed out of the water with water, and several terrible mouths rushed directly to Qin Luo God. It's not dead wood, it's crocodile. Qin Luoshan saw the rows of snow-white sharp teeth, and the huge mouth, and instantly realized what he had met. But at this moment, she squatted on the bank of the river, frightened, and could only climb backward with both hands and feet. But the speed of the crocodile was far faster than her. In the blink of an eye, she was already in front of her, and even she could smell the strong smell from the crocodile's mouth. Bang! But when Nathan's white teeth were less than a few centimeters away from her, along her body, the clear and transparent light curtain appeared again, and the crocodile whistling towards her flew as high as a ball, and fell into the river, with its white belly in the sky. He saved me once more. Looking at this scene, Qin Luoshan hurriedly took out the amulet from the collar. When he saw that its luster was dim, he felt grateful and lost. Step on this alligator and jump across the street. After that, she carefully stepped on the alligator's belly, jumped from the turbulent river to the opposite bank, and then carefully walked along the direction of the river. However, after experiencing the crocodile, she has become a bit of grass and trees, picked up a long branch and held it in her hand. When she walked forward, she always smashed it hard towards the ground for fear of wild animals hiding in the grass. If she saw such a picture on TV at home, she would think it was ridiculous, but now, she can't laugh at all. Her nerves were so tense that she felt that if it had not been for the warm breath that was constantly passing along the amulet, she would have nearly collapsed. Gulyulu, I don't know how far ahead. Looking forward, I still can't see the end of the rainforest. Just when Qin Luo was a little anxious, her stomach suddenly cried out. It's been a long time since she jumped off the plane, and she has never lived in the wild virgin forest since she was a child. Such a short journey makes her tired and eager to supplement nutrition. I knew earlier that I should try to cut off the crocodile's leg, but it's useless even if I cut it off. I can't make a fire at all. If I eat raw meat, I can't eat it. Qin Luoshan rubbed his stomach and laughed bitterly. She really did not expect that, as the first lady of the Qin family, one day she would be hungry and worried about what she ate. What is Yi Tian doing now? He must be worried. No, he should be looking for me now. Thinking of this, Qin Luoshan can't help looking up at the sky, hoping to see Tian stepping on the flying sword and suddenly appear in front of her. But when you look around, you can hardly see the sky except for the dense branches and leaves on your head. There are only scattered sunlight scattered along the leaves and falling on your body, which makes you feel hot like being burned by coals, but Qin Luoshan did not feel the hot temperature. He just raised his hand and picked up the hot temperature with his palm. Because, compared with the surrounding dense green, although the sun is hot, it is bright and vital.
Stick to it, you must see him again.
After a long time, Qin Luoshan slowly took back his hand and rubbed his stomach to make himself strong. He took the branch and continued to walk forward. After a long time, Qin Luoshan suddenly saw that not far from the riverside, there was a strong trunk, but the surface of the trunk was covered with all kinds of black, round and beaded trees. In that tree, there are still some monkeys squatting, picking the fruit from the tree trunk and stuffing it into their mouths.
If monkeys eat, then I should be able to eat too. Seeing this scene, Qin Luoshan was very happy.
He immediately trotted in front of the tree with a branch. He felt that he had picked a fruit and even could not wipe it, so he put it in his mouth.
Sweet and sour, it's like grapes, you can eat it.
A bite down, Qin Luogod immediately feel happy tears are about to flow down. Without any hesitation, Qin Luogod wanted to pick more fruits and take them to eat on the road.
Twitter chirp.
But at this time, the monkey in the tree saw her picking fruit, but he was not happy. He yelled at her and broke some branches. He threw them at her. Seeing this, Qin Luoshan quickly raised the branch, shook it, opened his mouth, and made a fierce appearance to scare the monkeys. Fortunately, these guys should have no contact with human beings at ordinary times. Seeing her action, they immediately yelled and ran to another tree. Seeing this, Qin Luoshan quickly picked a handful of fruit, stuffed it into his mouth and put it in his pocket as much as possible. Then he folded several big banana leaves and woven them into a small basket.
He put a basket in it and planned to keep it for the evening.
A moment later, she almost plucked all the ripe black fruits from the whole tree trunk.
Twitter chirp.
The monkey on the treetop in the distance looked at her and kept shouting.
Or leave them some. Qin Luoshan raised his head.
When he saw that many monkeys were still holding little monkeys, his heart suddenly softened. He put down the small basket, took out some fruits from it and put them on the ground. Then he waved to the monkeys and walked forward. Although she knew that she was in a bad situation, she still couldn't bear to look at the monkeys and lost food because of her.
Twitter chirp.
Seeing this, the monkey on the top of the tree jumped down. When he took a few bites of the fruit, he stared at Qin Luo's back and screamed wildly. His eyes were full of strange looks. It's like watching a little fat sheep wash itself and put it into the wolf's mouth.
With fruit to fill his stomach, Qin Luoshan felt much more energetic. He went on along the river. However, the area of the rainforest is too large. She feels that she has walked for a long time. Her legs seem to be leaded, but she still can't see the end of the winding river. It's so quiet here. Not only that, she also found a strange place, that is, the more she walked forward, the quieter it was around. At the beginning, she knocked on the grass, and sometimes she startled a few snakes and lizards, or some other small animals. But for a moment, even if there was thick grass in front of her, she knocked hard, and there was nothing in it. Not only that, even here there is not a bird call, the whole rainforest is as quiet as death. This kind of situation not only makes Qin Luogod feel that she cannot be so nervous, but also makes her feel uneasy, afraid that the silence is the peace before the storm. After a long time, the light in the rainforest gradually became dim. Under the shelter of the dense branches, the road ahead was almost invisible. If you want to find a safe place to rest, you can't keep on going. Otherwise, you will not only be unable to support yourself physically, but also be likely to encounter wild animals that come out to hunt at night. Seeing this scene, Qin Luoshan immediately made a decision in his heart. As he moved forward, he looked at where he was suitable for the overnight rest. A moment later, she saw a fairly clean open space in a banana forest in the distance. Here it is. Seeing this scene, Qin Luoshan immediately made a decision. He went into the open space, picked some banana leaves and spread them on the ground to avoid meeting mosquitoes. At the same time,
he put some banana leaves on the top of his head to avoid rain at night or heavy water vapor in the rainforest at night. Almost at the end of her busy life, the rainforest had become completely dark. She could only hear the clatter of the river in the distance and the rustle of the wind blowing through the treetops. The extreme darkness and quietness made Qin Luo, who had been used to the bright life, involuntarily curl up into a ball, holding his knees tightly in his hands and staring at the night in front of him.
Yi Tian, where are you?
Qin Luo God looked at the front of a piece of ink, in the heart of tired at the same time. There is a kind of sad. Moreover, she never liked this moment, so eager to see a person.
Is this Miss Love?
What happened on the plane, as well as the tiredness of the day on the road, finally made Qin Luoshan fall asleep. At the same time, Yi Tian, who has entered the dense forest for a day, keeps searching along the river. He believes that with the wisdom of Qin Luo God, he will surely think that walking along the river is the way out of the rainforest.
Although the sky is dim, Yi Tian doesn't stop.
Instead, he uses the light of his mobile phone to light the road ahead, and continues to move forward, emitting the 5 layers of cultivation atmosphere of his cave.
In this powerful breath, he didn't need to do any driving action at all.
The wild animals around him felt a kind of fear from the soul, and avoided the position of Yi Tian far away, and didn't dare to approach him.
This is...
At midnight, Yi Tian's flashlight suddenly shines on a large white object in front of him.
Parachute.
When Yi Tian's flashlight was shining and his mind was probing, he immediately found that it was a parachute. Not only that, he also found that although the parachute cloth had been broken, the rope had been untied.
All this shows that someone landed here, then untied his parachute and left. Is that her? Or those 2 guys?
But Yi Tian couldn't be sure whether the people who fell by parachute would be Qin Luoshan or the 2 mountain people.
It's her.
It must be her, but a little later, Yi Tian's heart made a judgment. According to what he learned earlier, the plane crashed in the stratosphere. At that altitude, the protective effect of this kind of parachute for aircraft rescue is limited.
Even if it lands, people will lose their lives. Now, however, the parachute shows signs of unraveling, which means that the skydiver has survived.
Among the 3 people on the plane, only Qin Luo was protected by amulets.
She's near here.
Qin Luoshan Yi Tianyan went to this place to use his magic power, perform the method like the roar of a lion, and call Qin Luo God, trying to elicit a response. But when the call came out, there was no movement except for a few birds who stayed at night.
Far away?
But keep looking along the river and you'll find her. Although Yi Tian did not hear the response, he still showed a smile at the corner of his mouth. Anyway, it's great news to see this parachute being untied. In the dark, he had seen a glimmer of hope.
Without any hesitation, Yi Tian continued to walk along the river bank.
A little later, he passed the corpse of the middle-aged man and smelled the strong odor. He was startled. He was afraid that Qin Luo was in danger, but he was relieved when his mind scanned him.
It's up to you. King Mingzong.
Limuran Yi Tian looks at the corpse, with an indifferent sound, and a touch of cold appears at the bottom of his eyes. During the exploration, he sensed the incomplete breath of Qingming Taoist formula from the wreckage. On Earth, the only one who practices this kind of secret art is King Mingzong, and there is no semicolon. Besides Li Muran, the first son of Qingming sect, he couldn't find the second one who would attack Qin Luo God. Not only that, from this means, he also realized that the previous turmoil of King Mingzong may have subsided now, and Li Muran may have become the beneficiary of this turmoil of King Mingzong. But even so, Yi Tian's heart is still fearless.
Don't say Li Muran is just a profiteer.
Even if he becomes the leader of Qingming sect, since he dares to blackmail the people around him, he will never have a good life again. Immediately, Yi Tian continued to move forward. A little later, in the river, he saw a few crocodiles that had been swollen and turned white. Not only that, from the crocodiles, he felt the touch of amulet.
It's her. She's alive.
Great. This scene let Yi Tian completely confirm the fact that Qin Luoshan is still alive. Let him face can't help but float a smile. What happened before was only his conjecture, but now the bodies of these crocodiles are the real evidence that Qin Luo God is still alive. Moreover, through the alligator killed by the amulet, Tian also judged that the amulet he made for Qin Luoshan still had efficacy after the plane crash. In this way, the possibility of Qin Luo's escape from the rainforest is much greater than before.
Forward. Forward. Go on and you'll find her.
Without any hesitation, Tian immediately speeds up and goes on along the river, looking for the traces left by Qin Luoshan. He pursues all the way, hoping that he can appear beside Qin Luoshan as soon as possible. He knew that what happened in the daytime and the dark night of the rainforest must have frightened Qin Luo. Wow, but at this time, along the sky, suddenly there are dense rain, like pouring general, suddenly fell down.
It's raining, trouble.
When Tian saw this, he frowned.
He immediately quickened his pace and walked in a hurry.
He wanted to appear in front of her before the heavy rain did not destroy the trace left by Qin Luo God.
It's raining.
At the same time, when the cold rain fell, Qin Luoshan touched his wet cheek and woke up from the confusion. Why rustle, why rustle? But almost at the moment when she was conscious, she suddenly heard the sound of something pressing over the grass and bending the dead branches and all kinds of ferns.
What the hell? In the silent night, this strange voice suddenly appeared.
In an instant, Qin Luo's sleepiness completely dissipated, and his heart also hung to his throat. In the bottom of his heart, there was a feeling of extreme uneasiness.
Don't come here, don't come here.
Without any hesitation, Qin Luo immediately held his breath, trying not to make any sound and movement. At the same time, he kept praying in his heart, hoping that the rustling sound could be far away from him. But it's a pity that God always seems to like to joke with people. That terrible voice in the silent night is constantly approaching.
Wow!
Immediately after that, the banana leaves above her head suddenly fell down without any sign. The rain mixed with the huge banana leaves immediately fell on her. The cold rain made her feel like a drowned chicken. At the same moment, the rustle stopped suddenly.
Did it leave?
Qin Luo prayed in his heart, but at this moment, she suddenly felt that the sky seemed to be bright, but the bright sky was not normal bright white, but strange dark green.
What's this?
When she raised her head, the whole person was stunned. At this moment, above her head, there was a pair of eyes as green as a fist-sized light bulb.
Moreover, the distance between the eyes is very wide. We can imagine how amazing the size of the brain is.
Snake.
No, python. Python.
In a flash, Qin Luo God judged what the master of these terrible eyes was.
Hiss ha.
At the same time, the python's oil-green eyes blinked, and then his bloody mouth suddenly opened to 180 degrees, like a terrible dustpan, covering Qin Luo's head. The distance was so close that even Qin Luo God could see that the 2 rows of teeth were swimming up and down in the upper jaw of the python, such as ready to swallow.
Run! Qin Luoshan didn't have any hesitation.
Almost at the same time when the python's head rushed down, people got up from the ground, and then ran towards the front, trying to escape from the terrible python's kiss. At this moment, she finally understood why everything would be so quiet after she entered this area. The reason is very simple, because this area is the territory of this python. As long as the animals around come here, they can't escape the python's kiss, so they dare not get close at all. Wow! At the same time, after the python jumped into the air, it climbed to the ground and swam with its huge body of nearly 10 meters.
It was closely behind Qin Luo God, with bursts of hiss ha ha. The sound of the sound, catch up.
Even Qin Luoshan didn't find that when a person was in a desperate situation, she would burst out with such strong willpower and explosive power. She clearly felt that her body had no strength before, but when the python came, she felt that her body was like a new force suddenly burst out, supporting her to run forward. Even if you fall down, you will be able to stand up again.
Time flies.
Qin Luo doesn't know how far he has run, how many bogs he has stepped on, and how many times he has been tripped.
Even once, the python has almost bitten her feet.
Fortunately, she has been running in front of the python all the time. Finally, she runs to one in the night, emitting weak fluorescence in the valley of the mountain. What's more, when she entered the valley for more than 10 meters, she found that the sound of the python chasing behind her disappeared. When she looked around, she found that the python did not enter the valley at the moment. Instead, she wandered around the mouth of the valley. She wanted to enter the valley to catch her, but was afraid of something.
Is there something in this valley that scares this python? Looking at the python, Qin Luoshan felt uneasy. But when he looked around the valley, he found that except for some strange white bones, the skeleton was complete and there was nothing else. He was relieved. Even if she died, she would rather die in such a place than be swallowed by a python. Finally, if the python can't overcome his fear, he turns back, swims back to the rainforest and disappears. In this valley, there must be something that python is afraid of. When Qin Luoshan saw the python leave, she was more and more sure of her previous speculation. But now she couldn't think much about it. As soon as her heart fell to the ground, she immediately felt as if she had been hollowed out and sat down on the ground, wheezing. He gasped heavily in his mouth. When she lowered her head, by the weak light of the valley, she saw that her legs were covered with lacerated wounds, dripping blood, and almost covered the whole leg. Not only that, her clothes were torn to rags, and even many places on her legs were stained with a lot of disgusting leeches. This scene, let her can't help but some admire themselves, in this case, even can escape from the mouth of a python. Immediately after that, she tried to endure the pain and wanted to pull the leeches out of her legs. But at this time, a scene beyond her expectation appeared. According to what the TV said, as long as they were bitten, they were very difficult to pull out. At this moment, they took the initiative to climb down from her legs, and then moved their bodies neatly and ran to the valley. Besides the speed, it's amazing. It seems that they have done their best. But just a few seconds later, these leeches have been crawling for less than a meter, but their bodies are suddenly soft and crooked, and then along the two ends of the head and tail, suddenly red and black blood is squeezed out, and then become a shriveled dry skin. This. Qin Luoshan looked at this scene, and for a moment, he forgot the terrible tingling sensation from the wounds on his legs. He only felt chilly, and his whole body was covered with goosebumps. There is something in this valley. What is it? It makes the python so scared, and makes these leeches look like this? Qin Luoshan shivered all over her body uncontrollably. For a moment, she felt like she had just come out of the wolf's den and entered the tiger's nest. She scanned the four directions. With the faint fluorescence of the valley, she was shocked to find that the deeper the valley was, the more white bones there were on the ground. What dangers are hidden in this valley then? When Qin Luoshan raised his hand, he was surprised to find that a thin transparent light curtain floated along the surface of his finger, as if trying to isolate something from her body. The amulet has been touched again. Seeing this scene, Qin Luoshan immediately took out the amulet from his collar. After looking at it, he found that the amulet was shaking slightly, and the color was becoming lighter. This scene suddenly made her feel that the valley in front of her was like the biggest wild animal in the rainforest, which could easily swallow everything into her body, and then turn it into Moriran bones. Even, in front of it, even the fierce python is a child thing. And at the moment of her, it is a step by step to send themselves to the head of the invisible beast belly. Not only that, what she can be sure is that when the power of the amulet is completely exhausted, I'm afraid that she will become just like those leeches who want to flee desperately but can't leave. Get out, while the amulet is still useful, get out. Thinking of this, Qin Luoshan struggles to get up from the ground and run towards the mouth of the valley. What she can't understand is that although the mouth of the valley seems close, no matter how hard she tries and how long she runs, she still feels that the distance between the mouth of the valley and herself has not changed. As if, in the surrounding air, there is an invisible labyrinth, is constantly troubling her. I may never see him again. When Qin Luoshan worked hard for a long time and finally fell to the ground breathlessly, she suddenly found that her first thought was not that she might die here, but that she would never see Tian again. Why Russell? At the same time, Tian ran quickly in the rain along the traces left by Qin Luogod, and soon came to a dense banana forest. In a moment, he heard a sound coming along the forest. Luoshan? When Tian heard the sound, his eyes changed and he immediately drank heavily. Whoa! But almost at the moment when his voice fell, along the plantain forest, a huge python with a small bucket and a length of more than 10 meters suddenly flew from the plantain forest. Its long tusks were like daggers, trying to pull people into the abdomen. No! Tian's eyes twitched when he saw the python. He was not afraid of this kind of beast, but worried that he would be a little late after all, which would lead to Qin Luo's accident and be buried in the belly of a boa. Whoa!
Immediately after that, Yi Tianxian read a turn, and the fierce sword suddenly moved.
The stab flew out and fell on the python's mouth. It was like cutting tofu, and it was easy to go down. In the blink of an eye, the flying sword cuts directly from the python kiss to the tail of the python, making this fierce python like a giant that no one can compete with in the rainforest. Like a rag pocket, it spreads out in front of Yi Tian.
Who the worst didn't happen. Yi Tian didn't have time to take back the flying sword, and he didn't care about the bloody filth. He swept to the boa's belly. When he found that the boa's belly was empty and there was no food, he was relieved. No, this python is so hungry that it has no reason to let Qin Luo God go. Moreover, I exude the breath of 5 layers of the cave. It dares to take risks to me. It has no reason to let Qin Luo God go because he has an amulet on him. But immediately, Yi Tian frowns, doubts emerge in his heart, feel that things are not so simple.
Is there any unknowable danger in the jungle that makes this fierce python afraid to pursue Qin Luo? Is it a fierce beast or something? Yi Tian's eyes changed. After pondering a little, he glanced around and found that in addition to the trace of boa constrictor, Qin Luo's footprints had been destroyed by the torrential rain. Then he murmured to himself. Make a bet. After that, he decided to follow the trace left by the python to find Qin Luo. Under the night, in the rainstorm, Yi Tian's body is like electricity, walking along the grass, and the speed is as fast as a gust of wind in the rain. At the same time, the valley was covered with white bones and was extremely quiet. Qin Luoshan sat on the ground and tried hard for countless times. Even though his legs were so tired that they were like cramps and shaking constantly, he could no longer walk to the mouth of the valley. That feeling, as if in the air, there are countless tracks that she can't see, blocking her. What's more, she found that the light curtain made by the amulet around her was becoming weaker and weaker, and the luster of the amulet itself had become extremely dim. It was covered with fine cracks, and it seemed that it could completely break into dust at any time. When the amulet is completely broken, it's when I die. Qin Luoshan held the amulet tightly, tears like broken line. She is not crying for the death she is going to face, but for the first gift from Yi Tian, which is broken and dissipated in this way. She is so sad that she will never see Yi Tian again. These, more than death, made her feel unacceptable. As time goes by, the talisman has only a trace of light left, and the assembled light curtain is about to break and dissipate at any time. Qin Luo God, with tears in his eyes, suddenly sees a familiar figure outside the valley, sweeping rapidly in the pouring rainstorm. Is it my illusion before death? But even if it was an illusion, I finally saw him again when I was alive. Qin Luoshan looked at the figure with tears in his eyes. For a moment, he forgot to do anything. Even a smile appeared in the corner of his mouth. He felt that this was the happiest moment in his life. Qin Luoshan. But at this time, Yi Tian, who had already swept to the mouth of the valley, swept towards the valley. When he saw Qin Luo God like a blood man, his eyes suddenly changed. He only felt that the heavy stone hanging in his heart finally fell to the ground. Then he lost his voice and exclaimed. Hearing Yi Tian's voice, Qin Luoshan is stunned by thunder. She looks up at Yi Tian. She doesn't know where the strength comes from. She struggles to get up from the ground and wants to run to Yi Tian. Yi Tian looks at Qin Luoshan, whose clothes and hair are messy and his whole body is covered with bloodstains. His heart twitches. Even if he wants to rush into the valley, he takes Qin Luoshan and leaves here with her. No, don't come in. But at the moment when Qin Luoshan saw Yi Tian's action, she shivered. If she thought of something, her mouth would stop her. But when her mouth opened, she couldn't make a sound. She could only shake her head and wave her hands at Yi Tian. What is she doing? Yi Tian looks at Qin Luo God's appearance, eyes a stagnation, listen carefully, but can't hear any voice, but from Qin Luo God's action, but also can see, she seems to be blocking his approach. Is there anything strange about this valley? Thinking of this, Yi Tian's magic power moves, and the eye of the source heaven opens, scanning the valley. This is... Yuan Tian's eyes shine through, and Yi Tian immediately sees that all the strange black and white field runes in the valley in front of him are constantly changing like living creatures. Black and white, yin and yang, life and death. How can there be such a terrible field on earth? Yi Tian was shocked.
He felt that the black and white runes in this field were not other things, but the rhymes of life and death.
Life and death are the eternal secrets of the universe.
No one knows where life comes from and where death goes. Here, the breath of life and death is intertwined, just like the Yanluo field in Chinese mythology and legend.
It is the junction of life and death.
Not only that, he also found that the rhyme of Tao, which is interwoven with life and death, forms a kind of strange field array energy here.
As long as you enter it, you will be drawn by the endless power of life and death, lost in it, and unable to leave. This kind of field, even in the square-inch spirit field, is absolutely a forbidden area.
He couldn't understand how there could be such an extremely dangerous place on the earth as the realm of life and death, and why such a place was formed on the earth. Because, according to Feng Shui and Lingyu, the rhyme field of life and death is immortal. Immortal is not willing to die, a life and death interweave, turn into the rhyme field of life and death, eternal, with the world forever, do not increase or decrease, do not disappear.
It can't be said that the cultivation civilization on earth was once brilliant to the place where immortals were born?
The place of the birth of immortals is nourished by qi. Even if it is immortal, its aura should be extremely rich and feed back later generations. However, the aura of the earth is extremely rare. Qin Luo's warning, obviously, was that she had found something strange here, so she would rather die here alone than send a message to herself rather than go into the valley to rescue herself.
Is this the warning of Ning Yao? When Qin Luo died, she no longer existed?
Yi Tian's mind changes, and he feels that there are thousands of thoughts pouring into his mind, which makes his mind dizzy.
No!
The power of amulet is about to run out immediately. When Yi Tian looked around Qin Luo God, he was surprised to find that the protective light curtain made of amulets interwoven on Qin Luo God's body was now only a thin layer of light, which could be broken at a touch, under the erosion of the rhyme of life and death.
It doesn't matter. Yi Tian saw this without any hesitation.
With a bite of his teeth, he rushed into the valley and walked to Qin Luo.
He's in the valley.
Qin Luoshan looked at Yi Tian, who was close to him from the mouth of the valley. His tears were like rain, trickling down his cheek. She knew that just as Yi Tian gang stopped, he had found something unusual in the valley. Now he rushed into the valley, leaving life and death behind him, and he didn't care about it anymore.
Sorry, I've worn out the amulet you gave me.
Qin Luoshan saw Yi Tian rushing into the valley. After a little stunned, she immediately rushed into Yi Tian's arms and cried out. It seemed that she would release all the fears and thoughts in her heart. In a moment, she spread out her hand holding the amulet to Yi Tian and opened her mouth. She wanted to speak, but she was silent and kept sobbing.
It's just an amulet. If it's worn out, it's worn out. I'll make a new one for you. Yi Tian can't help looking at Qin Luoshan's appearance. He raises his hand and gently touches Qin Luoshan's hair. He looks at her and says with a relieved smile. At this moment, he occasionally wrote in his heart that he loved Qin Luoshan. He knew that Qin Luo was fond of him and even fell in love with him. But what he had in his heart was always Ning Yao and the soul of Qin Luo God. If we say that in the past, Qin Luoshan's intention to him was because he helped solve Li Fan Yuan's problem and made her escape a disaster and wanted to repay her kindness, now she cares so much about the amulet, and after discovering the abnormality of the valley, she tries her best to stop him from getting close to him. All this shows that Qin Luoshan's heart to him is not a reward. Well, it's that simple. Even if Yi Tian was only infatuated with Ning Yao, now his heart of stone has become soft. Not only that, he also realized that he knew little about Qin Luo. She's not just a young lady with high status as she thinks. Even if she is protected by amulets, she can live in the rainforest until now, which shows that she is a very strong girl. Qin Luoshan shakes her head and wants to speak, but she can't say a word. But her hand, holding Yi Tian's big hand tightly, doesn't dare to relax for a moment. It seems that she is afraid that Yi Tian will disappear if she releases it. I'll find a way to get you out first. Yi Tianro voice comforts Qin Luo God, then meta operation, open the source of heaven eye, shine all around, want to find a way out. The field of life and death is indeed a Jedi. Even though Yi Tian had been practicing Taoism for 200 years and was once known as the great monk of Yupijing in the past, at this moment, looking at the valley in chaos and uncertainty, like a millstone, crushing the field of vitality, he still has a feeling of despair. Not only that,
but what is more terrible is that at this moment, he feels that along his own body, the vitality is being twisted because of the field's attrition, and a little bit of consumption has a sign of dying out. Without any hesitation, Tian immediately turned on his mana, closed his body, and tried to slow down the dissipation of his vitality. Click at this time, the light curtain of the amulet protecting Qin Luotian suddenly dissipated, turned into pieces of light powder, scattered in the void, and the amulet tightly held by Qin Luotian also turned into dust, rustling all over the ground along her fingers. Qin Luotian looks at the broken amulet, and her face is extremely sad. She tries to hold her hand tightly to stop the amulet from passing. Unfortunately, the sand in her palm can't be left. This scene, let her canthus can't help but have crystal clear in twinkle. Don't worry, I'll make you a new one. Seeing this, Tian takes a pitiful look at Qin Luo God. Then he takes out the congenital spirit wood from the storage ring, and wants to make another amulet to help Qin Luo God and himself resist the invasion of the field of life and death, and strive for the time to leave. I can't feel the vitality of heaven and earth. But when Tian was ready to cut the congenital spirit wood, he was surprised to find that he could not feel the vitality of heaven and earth in this valley. The rhyme field of life and death is so terrible, not only obliterating life and death, but also isolating the vitality of heaven and earth. This discovery makes Tian's face become gloomy immediately. If there is a talisman to help resist, he can also fight for as much time as possible. With his field attainments, he can find a way to break the field of life and death. But in the case of Reiki isolation, as long as his mana is exhausted, it must be the death time of him and Qin Luo God. Click click. At the same time, Tian hears the sound of trembling teeth coming from his side. He turns his head and looks around. He finds that Qin Luotian is holding his hands tightly in front of his chest. His small face is iron blue. It seems that he has been attacked by the cold, especially cold. The protective light curtain of amulet is broken, and her body has been unable to resist the invasion of life and death rhyme. Seeing this, Tian's eyes were awe-inspiring. He grasped the hand of Qin Luo's divine hand and immediately turned the mana into her body. At this moment, human life is at stake. He can't care that it will speed up the loss of his mana. The magic power into the body, Qin Luotian immediately feel warm body, before that kind of shudder feeling, suddenly dissipated, the whole person comfortable a lot, the body involuntarily close to Tian. I will try my best to find a way, but there is a great possibility that I can't find a way out. Are you afraid? Tian looks at Qin Luo God's appearance, a bitter smile, slowly way. Life and Death Rhyme Field, in Fengsuan Spirit Field, is a well-known Jedi. In addition, there is no growth of any panacea in it. Therefore, even in Fengsuan Spirit Field, he won't go to this place at all, and he knows little about it. With the strength of the 5th floor of his cave, there is almost no difference between the difficulty of leaving such a Jedi and climbing to heaven. We're going to die here. Qin Luo God heard Tian's words, his heart trembled, involuntarily nodded, but soon, she shook her head again, and then tightly hugged Tian's arm, the body close to him. That attitude, even if she didn't say a word, Tian could see that Qin Luotian was saying that although she was afraid of death here, as long as she had her own side, she would not even be afraid of death. This scene makes Tian's heart even more moved. He didn't expect that under the delicate appearance of Qin Luo God, there is such a heart of utmost love. He once simply regarded Qin Luotian as Ning Yao, but later found that they were different. Now, he is soberly aware that there are amazing similarities between Qin Luotian and Ning Yao, but they are not the same person. Just, looking at Qin Luo God's eyes full of hope, Tian's eyes can't help dodging. In his heart, even at this moment, what he can't put down is still Ning Yao. That's the only one in his life. It's the Taoist companion who has been with him for 200 years. No one can replace it. Too old. Maybe it can do something. But at this time, Tian's heart suddenly moved, suddenly remembered the Taisui in the storage ring. Taisui Shouyuan is extremely long and nearly infinite. Although Taisui's cultivation is very poor now, when it comes to some secret knowledge, it is probably much better than itself. Maybe, it can get away from the field of life and death. Without any hesitation, Tian's mind moved and released Taisui from the storage ring. Wow, it's so painful. Hiss, it's killing me. As soon as Taisui came out of the storage ring, he jumped up on the ground and made a series of miserable howls. Although Qin Luoshan felt that he had experienced many things and was not afraid of death, he was shocked when he saw a ball of jelly jumping on the ground and howling. This guy is also troubled by the field of life and death. Hearing this, Tian immediately understood the cause of Taisui's pain, and immediately said in a deep voice, "Don't call me Morning. Please tell me how much you know about the field of life and death, otherwise, I will die here, and you will die too." The rhyme field of life and death giggle giggle dead, the master is going to die, and I'm going to die too. Taisui heard the news, looked around, and immediately collapsed on the ground. Immediately, his invisible eyes caught sight of Qin Luo God. He immediately got up from the ground, ran to Qin Luo God's side, rubbed on her leg, and said to please, "Mother Ning. This thing, no Ning Yao, and recognize me as Ning Yao." Hearing this, Qin Luoshan was stunned and looked at the group sticking to his legs in disbelief. "Master, how can the cultivation of Master's mother become so weak?" At this time, Taisui flattered Tian twice, then wandered to Tian. After a doubt, he said, "Don't worry, Master. I'm your loyal pet and my little helper. Last time you flew with that girl, I won't tell your mother. Did Tian fly with other girls?" When Qin Luo heard this, he felt sour. She thought, this is only their own can enjoy things, but did not expect, Tian even with other girls together. "Gee, how can I be so outspoken and say it? Master, don't worry, I will help you explain. Master, don't blame the master. Last time that girl didn't put a sword on the master's neck to force him to take off." Taisui Ru suddenly woke up and made a slip of words. He was surprised, and then hurriedly told Qin Luo Shinto. Qin Luoshan's face was strange to the extreme, a little red and sour. Shame is because of Taisui's mother again and again. As for sadness, it is because from Taisui's words, she completely confirmed that Ning Yao really lived with Tian. Not only that, but also she felt aware of another thing. She thought that Tian didn't want to be with herself or any girl. But now, as like as two peas, she found that she might have misunderstood. Maybe Tian did not want to be just like her. Don't listen to his nonsense. That's my good friend in high school. We are just like brothers, and the imperial sword is to save her and send her home. Tian stares at Taisui, and then, not knowing why, explains to Ning Yao. Then, he says to Taisui in a deep voice, "Since you are not mourning, do you know the way to leave from the field of life and death?" When Qin Luoshan heard Tian's explanation, the blush on his cheek immediately grew stronger, and then he felt a little sweet in his heart. Since he specially explained this to me, he must care about my feelings in his heart, right? Who's Taisui master? How can I live in the little field of life and death? I'm sorry. Taisui was proud, and then the jelly-like body turned out to be a long tail in the butt, and shook it with pride. Talk to people. Tian really can't stand this guy's attitude of being like Emperor Lao Tzu first and second. His eyes are awe-inspiring and he says in a deep voice, "Master, you ask me to return this attitude." Taisui was so angry that he hopped around in anger. Tian doesn't want to talk anymore. With the operation of mana, a little blood contract of life and death suddenly appears in his palm, and 5 fingers make the action of crushing it. "Master, my dear master, I say, I'll just say." Taisui trembled and said in a hurry, "My former master once entered the field of life and death, and stayed there for more than 50 years. Then he finally figured out the way to leave. The former master is really nice. He always gives me pills when I need help. The former master, I really shouldn't boil you to death. Come back to life soon, and take your poor Taisui away from the big devil." At this point, Taisui's jelly-like body actually condenses 2 arms and wipes the body. "Former master, how many people did this Taisui follow?" Tian looks at Taisui, speechless and shocked. He knew that in the legend, the longevity of Taisui was almost infinite, but he did not expect that this kind of legend was true. You know, the longevity of monks was almost long, and it was common to live to 1,000 years old after Yupu. And the terrible existence that can survive in the field of life and death rhyme for 50 years, the cultivation strength must be more powerful than Yupu realm. Shouyuan is more long, but Taisui, unexpectedly, Shengsheng has boiled him to death, so we can see how alive the goods are. Don't be hypocritical. I don't have any pills for you to eat. If you don't say what you can do, you'll have to die here together. But at this time, when Yi Tian saw Tai Sui's hand smearing on his body dribbling around. If he was peeping at him, his eyes were cold and he said faintly, "Master, you were so cruel." Tai Sui hears the news, wriggles, crawls to a white bone left by a monkey, and spreads like flowing water. After turning into a naked hairless white monkey, he scratches his ears and gives Yi Tian a look of resentment, just like a daughter-in-law. This thing Qin Luo's eyes widened and she looked at Tai Sui in disbelief. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she couldn't believe that there was such a strange creature in this world. With the help of white bones, she showed a human skeleton. "In fact, you are reluctant to use this method, master." "It's nothing to say." Tai Sui light fart monkey see you resent a past. Yi Tian also have no any facial expression, can only continue you resentful incomparable way. "What method, make it clear." Yi Tian's eyebrows slightly wrinkled, looking at Tai Sui, and said in a deep voice, "Change life for death." In the field of life and death are inexorable. Those who enter will die. If they want to leave, there is only one way. That is to sacrifice a kind of life and make it die for themselves. In this way, they can live. Tai Sui's light fart monkey scratched his ass, looked at Yi Tian's complaint, then looked at Qin Luo God and said, "Master, you must be reluctant to take your mother Yi's life for death, so I didn't say anything about this method. Master, you give up the blood contract of life and death and leave me. Although it's a little bitter, I believe it will last until the rime of life and death dissipates, or someone strong will come in and take me away. Easy life for death." Yi Tian frowned and looked at Qin Luotian. Then he looked at Tai Sui and said in a deep voice, "Is there no other way except this one?" "No. Life and death rhyme field, such a desperate situation, can come up with a solution, is already amazing, or can come up with another one." Tai Sui light fart monkey immediately shook his head and said. Yi Tian's brow is wrinkled. It's absolutely impossible for him to change his life for death, not to mention that Ning Yao and Qin Luo are one. Even if it's not the case, he doesn't take an innocent person's life in exchange for his own survival. But he also believes that Tai Sui's words are not false, and the field of life and death rhyme is extremely strange. If there is a way to solve such a field, it is lucky. How can there be more ways? Who was your former master? Yi Tian is silent for a long time, and asks Tai Sui in a deep voice. He wants to make the final confirmation to avoid this guy's random talk. Others call him Jiuyo. The former master is very kind to me. The pills are like sugar beans, and the fairies seem to be idle. Let alone these, there are 5 or 6 fairies to massage for me. The former master, you are so unjust. Tai Sui's naked fart monkey wails and falls to the ground. A layer of jelly covers the surface of a mouse's skeleton and turns into a bald mouse. He continues to cry bitterly. His voice is heartrending. It's so sad that there is no more tears. He looks at Yi Tian secretly, as if he wants to use these words to express his feelings. Huaishan. Jiuyo. Yi Tian is thrilled to hear that the name, which he has heard in Fengsu and Lingyu, is a kind of taboo. It is said that it is entangled with the Dark Age, and may even be one of the source murderers of the Dark Age. It's either the Demon King or the Fierce One in the Dark Age. How can the master who is too old to follow be so weird? Do I also have the sign of becoming a Fierce One? Yi Tian looks at Tai Sui in surprise, which is quite creepy. But he doesn't doubt Tai Sui's words. Under the contract of life and death, he can feel Tai Sui's mood when he speaks. Although this guy exaggerates, he doesn't lie. His former master is indeed the legendary Jiuyo. Of course, only this kind of strong existence which is suspected to stir up the Dark Age can survive in the field of life and death for 50 years without damage. However, even if there is a definite method, what can be done? How can he exchange the life of Qin Luo God for his own? So I said, even if I give you away, you will not agree. The old mouse shook his head and sighed. Your longevity is long enough and your vitality is huge enough. I can take you to resist the departure of 2 people. Yi Tianmo light changes, and finally falls on Tai Sui, slowly. Tai Sui is extremely mysterious. Shou Yuan is very long. Even Jiuyo, which is suspected to be one of the sources of the Dark Age, can be killed by it. With its vitality, Shouyuan can perform the method of changing life for death, which is absolutely enough for 2 people, and more than enough.
Master, don't think about it. I've lived for a long time, and I don't have much life left. I'll die when I use it up.
Moreover, the field of life and death rhyme is very strange, even if the method of changing life for death can only change one life for another. Even if you exchange me for the life of one of you or your mother, there is still one who wants to stay here and can't leave. 2 old mouse excited Ling Ling to beat to shiver, nervously backed back a few steps, vigilantly looking at Leafday, Wei.
Pass me the secret and I'll verify it.
Yi Tian stares at Tai Sui and doesn't believe this guy's words. Tai Sui Mouse thought hard, and then passed the yimming method to Yi Tian.
This guy is not deceiving.
This rhyme field of life and death really has the ability to identify life and body.
A same life can only be used once, even if it's too old and full of vitality, it can't be used twice.
Yi Tian's brow twisted into a knot in one's heart. After a long silence, he looked around, trying to find the existence of other living things. But as far as I could see, there was no sign of life in the valley except for the white bones and the dark brown soil, let alone living creatures, not even a single grass.
I will.
But just when Yi Tian frowned and thought hard to find a solution, Qin Luoshan suddenly gently pulled his arm, then picked up a stone and wrote 3 words on the ground. Just now Yi Tian and Tai Sui's conversation, she heard in the ear, knowing that if you want to have a person to leave, you have to leave a person's life. Then, she is willing to give her life to let Yi Tian go. One reason is that Yi Tian is in danger just to save her, and her life is in danger. Of course, she can't sit back and ignore her.
Moreover, from the moment she jumped off the plane, she was ready to face death.
She could live till now, see Yi Tian again, and be held by his hand. She felt that she had actually made money. Second, even without these reasons, she is willing to make such a sacrifice for Yi Tian's sake.
I can find a way. Don't listen to its nonsense. It's not so difficult to crack this array. I can crack it later.
Yi Tian looks at Qin Luogod and smiles. He kicks those 3 words away with 1 foot and looks relaxed.
It's not that hard?
Qin Luogod looked at Yi Tian in amazement. He felt that Yi Tian was deceiving himself, but his smile was so calm, as if he didn't pay attention to all this.
Have you forgotten who I am? It's so difficult. How can it be difficult for me?
Yi Tian picks eyebrow to smile lightly, confidence full of need Qin Luogod's catkin, smile way. Qin Luogod looks at Yi Tian in disbelief, some can't believe it's true.
Close your eyes and have a rest. I'll find a way to get out.
Yi Tianxiong smiles at Qin Luoshan again, indicating that she doesn't have to worry. Then she sits on the ground, ready to make up her time, as if she really has a mind.
Don't lie to me.
Qin Luoshan hesitated for a moment, nodded, took a stone and wrote 4 words on the ground, staring at Yi Tian. When Yi Tian nodded and agreed, he leaned on Yi Tian's shoulder, and then narrowed his eyes slightly. This day and night, she has been very nervous, tired to the extreme. Now Yi Tian appeared around, let her feel that she can finally settle down, have a good rest for a while. As long as Yi Tian is around, then she has nothing terrible. Soon, along Qin Luoshan's nose, there was a sound of even breathing, and when she was asleep, there was a smile on her mouth. See this scene, the smile on Yi Tian's face, suddenly solidified, eyebrows twisted into a knot in one's heart. If the field of life and death rhyme is as simple as he said, then Jodo, who is suspected to be the culprit of the Dark Age, can't be trapped in it for 50 years. What he said just now is just to comfort Qin Luoshan, so that she doesn't have to be so nervous.
Try again. What Joyo can't do, I may not be able to do.
But just a little. Yi Tian's eyes are awe-inspiring, and his eyes are shining all around, trying to find some rules from the black and white rhyme of life and death, and find a way out of the valley.
Life and death are impermanent, so is Dao Yun. Although Yuan Tian's eyes are different, he can only see that the black and white Dao Yun of life and death is like the rain swimming in the pool.
As long as he tries to find a way to find out the law, Dao Yun will immediately flee around like a shoal of scattered fish, so that he can't catch any law at all.
Hard. Hard as the sky.
If there is enough time, maybe there is a very weak chance to crack the field of life and death rhyme, but now, the loss of mana can't afford it. Yi Tian frowned tightly, Master.
Seeing Yi Tian's action, Tai Sui Mouse immediately opens its mouth and wants to talk to Yi Tian. Shut up! Yi Tian looked at Qin Luo God on his shoulder, looked at it, and said low. Master, it's no use to listen to my advice. Master Joyo came into the Tao from Heaven's Eye. When he was trapped in the field of life and death, it was half a step of jade cultivation. He had been trapped in it for 50 years before he came up with a way. Master, you are just. Seeing this, Tai Sui Mouse immediately sent a message to Yi Tian. Although he didn't finish his words, the meaning of it is very clear to Yi Tian. Joyo used to take a half step in Yupu, which was very difficult to do. Now he is only 5 floors in the cave, how can he do it? Master, the former master said that women are like clothes. If they wear this one today and that one tomorrow, if they are broken, they will throw away one. The former master said that they are not poisonous, but not husband. Master, if you are a correcting husband, you must be cruel and vicious. Then the old mouse spoke again. After looking at Qin Luoshan, he wiped one of his forepaws against his neck. His dark little eyes were full of evil. This guy is worthy of being the pet of 2 demons. These words are one by one. Yi Tian glanced at the old mouse and thought to himself. These principles, those inhuman devil can do, but against his heart, he is willing to choose death. Do not choose this. The cold color in Yi Tian's eyes made the old mouse tremble and smile. Of course, you are not the 2 evil men. I despise them for you. Don't be glib. Yi Tian glanced at the old mouse and said in a deep voice, lend me a part of your life. Master, I'm really left with such a small sum of life. If I use it, I'll die. I'm very kind. Tai Sui Mouse's knees softened, kneeling on the ground, while kowtowing to Yi Tian, shaking, as if in the twilight of life, as long as a little bit of wind, it can blow the oil out of the lamp. I don't know if you will die with a little Shuyuan, but I know that if you don't want to help, there will really be only one way to die. Yi Tian looked at the old mouse indifferently. After a cold sentence, he looked at it and said, of course, I won't let you help me in vain. If you are willing to help me, I can give you what you want most. What do you want most? Pills? Xianjun? The old mouse blinked Black Bean's eyes. After a murmur, his eyes lit up and he got up from the ground. He said in a voice, Master, would you like to cancel the blood contract of life and death? I told you so. It's my pet's bounden duty to help you out of trouble. Say which piece you want, I'll cut it for you now. Not for me. Yi Tian's eyes changed, slowly. Sir, you mean? The old mouse opened his mouth wide and petrified for a moment. After a long time, he murmured in disbelief. This master seems to be a little different from the 2 masters he followed before. You don't have to worry about these. You just need to help me. As long as you fulfill the agreement and give me enough Shoyuan to send a person out of the valley, I will fulfill the agreement and set you free. How about my character? Although you haven't been with me for a long time, you should be able to see something about it. Yi Tianping looks at the Tai Sui Mouse quietly and makes a faint sound. Sir, it's not worth it. Is your life as important as other people's life? You are Dante. Tai Sui Mouse hesitated for a long time, but advised Yi Tian. As Yi Tian said, although the Tai Sui Mouse has not long been in charge of Yi Tian, it can see everything Yi Tian does one by one. It finds that Yi Tian is a person who attaches great importance to love and righteousness. Such a person will never break his promise. Let's go. Yi Tian Lite, don't pay attention to 2 old mouse's advice at all. He felt that his mana was on the verge of exhaustion. If the stalemate continued, he would not even have the ability to arrange the life or death method. So, we have to make a decision as soon as possible. Not only that, he also knew that if he sent himself out first, Qin Luo God would die without the protection of his own mana. It is also unrealistic to send Qin Luo God out first and then choose to let him send in creatures that can be easily killed. Qin Luo God has no power to bind a chicken. How can he find creatures that can be easily killed? Moreover, even if Qin Luo God has this ability, according to the power of the rhyme field of the Tao of Life and Death, I'm afraid that before the creatures that can be easily killed are sent in, his little life will die first. I can't keep one step. It's your decision. I'm not cheating.
Tai Sui Mouse stares at Yi Tian and looks at him carefully.
He doesn't seem to be joking.
Then he goes to Yi Tian. He uses a front paw to pick up a sharp stone, reaches out his paw, and cuts off a finger the size of a grain of rice.
Gee, it's killing me. I'm dying.
The old mouse bared his teeth and collapsed on the ground, twitching constantly, as if he was about to die. Yi Tian picked up the finger the size of a grain of rice, removed the white bone and turned it into a small ball of jelly. After staring at it, he turned to Tai Sui and said, "Are you sure this little thing is enough?
Such a small amount is the centennial Shoyuan. I've lost a lot this time. This ghost earth is just an ominous place. I didn't do anything when I came here. I lost the centennial Shoyuan first." Two old mouse a face flesh ache, depressed way. The size of a mouse finger is 100-year-old Shoyuan. Yi Tian's face is full of amazement.
After staring at Tai Sui for a long time, he slowly shakes his head. Today, he finally saw the longevity of Tai Sui.
"Master, I really don't have much longevity. If I cut off this 100 years, I will lose it. I can't afford to cut it again, and even if I cut it off, it won't be of any use to you." The old mouse looked at Yi Tian in horror and stepped back.
Then the mouse claws stretched out and compared with each other. He felt that something was wrong and quickly shortened it again.
Finally, it became only half a grain of rice long.
Then he stopped.
"Don't worry, I mean what I say."
Yi Tian looked at it, a burst of speechless, shook his head, "Mana operation, take out the blood contract of life and death," a wave of his hand, then erased the restrictions, and then said to Tai Sui, "From now on, you are free."
"Master." Tai Sui looks at Yi Tian in amazement, and the body of the rat is petrified.
Although Yi Tian just said that he wanted to save Qin Luo God, he still didn't believe it. After all, no one can take other people's lives more seriously than his own. Needless to say, Yi Tian used to be the emperor of Dan. Even though the earth was desolate and poor in resources, he believed that with Yi Tian's ability, sooner or later, even if he did not restore his jade cultivation, he would have no problem living to the golden elixir.
But now, Yi Tian gave up.
All this, and its former master, are so different, let it some at a loss.
"No, I'm not your master anymore."
Yi Tian looked at Tai Sui and said with a smile, "I'll take your storage ring and give it to her.
I'll set a ban on you. After half an hour, you can leave the ring by yourself. From then on, the sky is high and the sea is wide. No matter where you want to go or who you want to recognize."
Yi Tian's voice is heard, and his mind is in motion.
He puts a ban on Tai Sui.
Then he puts it in the storage ring. Next, he takes off the ring and puts it in Qin Luo's pocket. Then, while using his mana to protect Qin Luo's vitality, he drew out one mysterious rune after another in the void according to the method of changing life for death taught by Tai Sui. Joyo is worthy of being one of the source murders suspected to trigger the Dark Age.
The understanding of life and death is really profound and mysterious.
When Yi Tian outlined the rune pattern, he was full of praise in his heart. He just felt that Joyo was like stealing heaven for another day. With the help of the method of changing life for death, it was so strange that it could not be more. Even, he doubted that if this method of changing life for death could go further, it would enable practitioners to escape from life and death and obtain another form of eternal life. However, this method stresses conservation. Only people with the same life in Yuan can be easily killed. That is to say, even if this method is refined enough to escape from life and death, a Yupu monk who wants to live needs a monk in the same environment, and the difficulty is no less than climbing to heaven. However, at this moment, Yi Tian can't care to think about so much. The magic power affects the rune patterns and constantly connects them. Finally, with the rune patterns running, the black and white rhyme of life and death in the valley gradually becomes clear. It can be seen by the naked eye and moves in an orderly way, just like a pair of yin and yang fish holding the head and tail.
Yes. This method is really feasible. It's a way to get out of the valley. With Yi Tian's knowledge, how can you not feel that the appearance of yin-yang Pisces is just the way to leave successfully? As long as you put the meat cut by Tai Sui into the black yin fish, which symbolizes death, and then Qin Luo God enters the white young fish,
which symbolizes life, you can easily die and successfully leave the valley.
Ningyao, Luotian, no matter what the result is, you too can live. To live alone is better than to live alone.
Immediately, Tian turned his head and looked at Qin Luotian's cheek, only to feel that this cheek, as if with his memory of that face, gradually overlapped together, and, even after watching for 200 years, every time I see it, it is still as beautiful and moving as I first saw, never tired. A moment later, Tian tidies up his mood, wants to knock Qin Luo God unconscious, and then puts it into the white young fish, which is a symbol of vitality.
Tian.
But before his hand was raised, Qin Luotian's closed eyes suddenly opened. Moreover, there was a layer of mist in his eyes. Her lips were moving.
Although she was silent, Tian knew that she was calling her name. I've found a way out. Let's get out now.
Tian looked at Qin Luotian, raised his eyebrows and said with ease, "You stand in the white young fish, you go out first, and then I can go out immediately." Qin Luotian stares at Tian for a long time, then nods his head, smiles at Tian, and gives him a thumbs up, as if praising him as powerful as he thinks. With a bright smile, Tian helps Qin Luotian up, and then walks towards Yin Yang fish.
I want to hold you.
Close to the fish map moment, Qin Luo God suddenly stopped, looking at Tian, with mouth silent said. Tian hesitated for a moment, then nodded with a smile, then opened his arms and tightly held Qin Luo God in his arms. He can't tell whether the person he wants to hold is Ningyao or Qin Luotian. He knows that his mana is about to run out, and the field of life and death rhyme has had a great impact on his body.
I love you.
But at this moment, Qin Luotian suddenly raised his head and looked at him. His lips moved back and forth, his voice was hoarse and cracked. Then his arms suddenly pushed towards him. As he broke away, he rushed to the black shady fish, which was a symbol of death.
Qin Luotian just didn't fall asleep. She found out the truth of her plan. Tian was stunned when he saw Qin Luo's action.
Just now, he devoted himself to the application of the method of changing life for death, coupled with the loss of vitality in the field of the rhyme of life and death. His perception was not placed on Qin Luo God, so even she did not fall asleep.
Brush!
Without any hesitation, Tian's feet move and stride forward, trying to catch Qin Luo God and send her to the position of white young fish. But at this moment, let Tian and Qin Luo God feel incredible, to the extreme of a strange scene suddenly appeared. Before Tian's hand touched Qin Luo's body, Qin Luo suddenly touched a strange force in the void. His body suddenly drifted away from the black yin fish, which symbolized death, and appeared in the white young fish center, which symbolized life.
Tian.
Qin Luotian, based on the white young fish, immediately looked at Tian. His voice was hoarse, as if the cloth had split. Although she has not heard Tian and Taisui's voice conversation, she can guess what he is going to do from Tian's look at that time. So, just now she did not hesitate to choose the opposite position that Tian said, and wanted to use this method to sacrifice herself to save Tian. But who would have thought that her plan failed in the end?
What's going on? Tian's face is full of bewilderment.
He is glad that everything has just happened. When he has finished his plan, he is even more puzzled. After arranging the Yiming for death method, he has no mana to use his cloud-catching hand to control Qin Luo God. His strength is not what he did.
The smell this is.
But at this moment, Tian suddenly sensed a kind of chi machine from Qin Luo God, a kind of chi machine that had experienced 200 years of time cycle and ups and downs, and was familiar with the extreme, which made his soul tremble and cheer.
Ningyao.
In a flash, Tian opened his mouth, looked at Qin Luo God, and spat out 2 words.
Hum.
Almost at the moment of his utterance, along the body of Qin Luo God, suddenly there is a light and shadow that is as clear as countless rays, quietly floating away, and then quietly suspended in front of Tian.
This figure is almost the same as Qin Luotian.
The only difference is that she wears a long white dress.
Ningyao. She is Ningyao.
Qin Luotian lost his voice completely at the moment. He looked at the light and shadow in a daze. In a moment, he knew who the owner of the light and shadow was. At this moment, she completely confirmed what Tian said to herself in the past. It turns out that Ningyao really exists in her body.
Ningyao, Ningyao.
Tian murmurs to himself, his eyes only feel hot. He reaches out and murmurs. He wants to touch the 200 years, but he is still looking at each other. Every time, he looks like his first face. However, his hand went out, but it penetrated the thin figure. He understood that this was the soul of Ning Yao, which was the deepest soul of Qin Luo God. Yi Tian, finally, I see you again. Ning Yao stands quietly in front of Yi Tian's body, and the corners of her mouth appear to have thousands of words to say. But in the end, she is as calm as water, and only says this simple sentence. Yes, I see you again at last. Yi Tian trembles and nods. His voice chokes. He only feels that his throat is blocked badly. Every word is like exhausting all his strength. Ning Yao's mouth is full of smiles, just like when she first saw the fireworks lit by Yi Tian that night. She reaches out her hand and gently falls on Yi Tian's cheek. Her eyes show the color of obsession and lingering. It seems that she can see the boy whose smile is more brilliant than the fireworks 200 years ago. Fool, live well. After a long time, Ning Yao's body suddenly twist, such as meteor drag across the sky, suddenly appeared in the center of the blacking fish. Ning Yao. Yi Tian wants to catch Ning Yao, but he can't catch anything at all. He just feels that at this moment, it's like there are tens of thousands of sharp blades that stab the heart at the same time. The heart is not bleeding, but surging. Pain, do not want to live. But from the moment Ning Yao appeared, he had already felt the breath of life changing for death from Ning Yao. At that moment, he knew that the moment Qin Luo God rushed to the blacking fish, the crisis of life and death awakened Ning Yao, who was one with her. As kind as Ning Yao, in that moment, she made a decision to exchange her spirit for Qin Luo's departure. In the same way, she sacrificed her life in exchange for Yi Tian's survival. Just like when those Jade Pu masters gathered to kill when Qingming Blessed Land fell, she left Yi Tianhu behind. Always, she is doing her best to protect Yi Tian. No, it can't be like this, it shouldn't be like this. Qin Luoshan shook his head and looked at himself in front of him. Besides his clothes, he murmured like a man in the mirror. I've been sleeping in your soul. I'm really sorry to disturb you. Ning Yao looks at Qin Luoshan's soft voice, turns her head and looks at Yi Tian, waves her hand and smiles like a flower. Just her eyes, but incomparably deep tenderness, just like to do everything possible to engrave this face in my heart. In a flash, Yiming's method for death suddenly works, and the black and white Pisces circle like a millstone. With a sudden turn of force, Qin Luo's figure suddenly disappears in the valley, while Ning Yao's thin and bright light and shadow suddenly turns into a fine light and rain, drifting away towards the valley. A little light is like a little star, bright but not dazzling, just like Ning Yao's gentle character. Yi Tian reaches out his hand, desperately wants to grab it, exert his magic power, and try to integrate the light and rain. However, no matter what he does, it turns out to be futile. After Yiming dies, the vitality dissipates and the spirit dies. Everything he does can't play a role at all. Ning Yao. Yi Tian kneels on his knees, clenches his fists with both hands, and takes out his heart and lungs with a sound. The pain is so severe that it can't be more severe. Along his cheek, there are more crystal clear drops, which fall heavily on the ground and break up suddenly. Yi Tian, don't worry. I'm by your side and my home is by your side. In the future, I'll accompany you to find your way home. Yi Tian, look at this little flower. I just picked it. Isn't it beautiful? How about we put it in the temple of Miluo and never die? Yi Tian, we are just like the clouds, stars and moon in the sky. Will we stay together forever? Yi Tian, don't be afraid. I'll protect you. Stand behind me. The scenes of the past suddenly appear in front of Yi Tian's eyes. With the sound of calling and the joy of cheering, Yi Tian's heart and liver will split when he meets danger just after arriving at the square-inch spiritual realm. A man has tears, because it's time to be sad. Susu. All of a sudden, a touch of golden light fell in front of Yi Tian, like rain, gently rippling, floating thousands of ripples. This is Yi Tian reaches out his hand, carefully picks up the light spot, puts it in the palm of his hand, and carefully examines it. Ning Yao Feng Niden. In a flash, Yi Tian sensed the rare chi of Phoenix Nirvana and Ning Yao from the light spot. However, the chi, the unusual calm, just like falling into a deep sleep.
It turns out that the Phoenix Nirvana pill that he made in Fengsu and Lingyu was finally successful, and the pill also entered Ningyao's spiritual body. At this moment, the remaining vitality of Feng Yiden helps Ningyao's spirit body to share part of the loss of the method of changing life or death, save part of her spirit body, and make her fall asleep. Yi Tian holds the light spot tightly and carefully. If he holds a rare treasure, he seems to be afraid that a little bit of movement will wake Ningyao, who is sleeping in the light spot. He wants to cheer, he wants to jump. This result, although not the best result, but with him, it is good enough to let him almost feel all this, is so unreal. Ningyao saved herself, and she also saved her. I'll wake you up, I'll let you come back to me, even if it's too hard, I'll do my best. After murmuring, Yi Tian carefully wrapped the light spot with magic power and put it in the elixir field, making it exist around the original spirit fire, nourishing it with the vitality of the original spirit fire. When he first came to Fengsu and Lingyu, when he was weak in cultivation, it was Ningyao who protected him. This time, he would protect Ningyao. I'll come back here again. The next time I come back, I'll let you die out whether you are the legendary immortal meteorite or not. Immediately, Yi Tian glanced around, 5 fingers pinched tightly, word by word, made an oath. Next, Yi Tian steps into the white young fish center where he can easily die. With a flick of his backhand, he flicks the piece of taisui meat into the center of the blacking fish. Hum! In a flash, the black and white Pisces whirled. Yi Tian felt that for a moment, life and death had become chaotic for him. Although it was just a few seconds, it could be as long as a lifetime, and appeared outside the valley. Yi Tian, I'm sorry, it's all my fault. As soon as Yi Tian's figure appeared, Qin Luo, with his tearful eyes, ran to Yi Tian, sobbing and hoarse. I don't blame you. This is Ningyao's choice. She has always been so kind. Yi Tian shook his head and said slowly. He knew that the reason why Ningyao chose to die instead of Qin Luo God was that he didn't want a fresh life to die in this way. Besides, he didn't want him to fall into the valley. If you really want to choose a wrong person, then this person is himself, not Qin Luo God. But at this moment, Yi Tian finally understood what happened to Ningyao's warning to Qin Luo God. The warning is not a plane crash, nor a rainforest crash. It's the rhyme field of life and death from beginning to end. Kenan Jiao is gone. Qin Luoshan sobbed and shook his head repeatedly. Because of her, she led to the death of Ningyao. No, Ningyao is still there. Seeing this, Yi Tian shook his head with a smile and said slowly, she fell into deep sleep. Now, she is in my body. Later, she and I are one. No matter who she is, there is no way to separate us. In fact, Ningyao fell into a deep sleep and separated from Qin Luoshan's body, which means that she became a separate spiritual body without a physical carrier, which is of course disappointing, but Yi Tian knew that it was a happy thing for him and Ningyao. Because, even if Ningyao wakes up later and takes the place of Qin Luo God, it will be Qin Luo God's body after all, not Ningyao's body. Moreover, now, the two of them who are separated are finally reunited. No matter who they are, they can't be separated. Qin Luoshan looks at Yi Tian in amazement. Her eyes are full of disbelief, and even some doubt. Whether Yi Tian's mind is abnormal because of the severe blow. When she leaves, she sees with her own eyes that Ningyao's spirit has turned into light and rain. Don't worry, my mind is not abnormal, and there is no accident. For some reasons, Ningyao didn't die out, just fell into a deep sleep. Where can Yi Tian not know the thoughts in Qin Luo's heart? He shakes his head with a smile and says slowly. Qin Luoshan stares at Yi Tian for a long time and sees that he doesn't lie at all, but the loss in his heart finally fades away a little. From now on, that is Qin Luo God, the unique Qin Luo God. No one will replace it. Yi Tian smiles and says a word to Qin Luo. Qin Luoshan is stunned when she hears the words. She has accepted the fact that she has Ningyao in her body, and that one day she may be replaced by Ningyao. But now, all of a sudden, she can't adapt. Moreover, I don't know why, this is a newsworthy of happiness, but at this moment, she is not happy. She is very worried that if from now on, she has nothing to do with Ningyao, will Yi Tian treat her as he did in the past? Luoshan, in fact, I know what you mean to me, but before Ningyao wakes up, I can't do anything sorry for her. But just at this time, Yi Tian looked at Qin Luo God.
After calming down, he breathed a sigh and calmed down. For him, Qin Luo God can sacrifice his life.
If Tian still pretends to be blind, he is sorry for Qin Luo God's efforts.
Therefore, he must say these words in his heart.
Will you like me?
Qin Luoshan's cheek is slightly red, and then he stares at Tian's eyes and asks the most uneasy question in his heart.
I like it.
Tian was silent for a long time, and finally obeyed his heart and nodded slowly. If a girl, for the sake of a man, does not care about her life and death, then she cannot feel any emotion for her, or even like her, then she is no longer a stone man, but a merciless machine. But Tian, not a machine. Qin Luoshan burst into Tian's arms and hugged him tightly with both hands. His cheek was close to Tian's chest. His hot tears made Tian's chest wet in a moment. If she hurt a girl in a man's heart and said she liked another girl, she would turn around and leave without hesitation. But now, she has gone through too many things, such as plane crash, amulet, life and death rhyme field, and Tian wants to send her out of that terrible valley even if she gives up the chance to survive. Under these circumstances, she is no longer the god of Qin Luo in the past. She has matured and changed a lot, whether it's her experience or her deep understanding of love. Tian opens his hands, after a little silence, and finally slowly falls on Qin Luo's back, tightly embracing the girl who, for him, does not even care about life and death. After a long time, two people slowly loosen. Qin Luoshan, cheek red, bashful and incomparable, looked at Tian, heart is full of sweet. This time, although she experienced endless twists and turns, in the end, she waited until what she most wanted to happen.
Do you want to stay here or leave? If you leave, I can take you away. Wherever you want to go in the future, the sky is high and the sea is wide, whatever you want.
A moment later, Tian took out the storage ring from Qin Luo's pocket, put Taisui out of it and said slowly.
Master, you and your mother have come out alive.
How could it be? Taisui saw Tian and Qin Luo God, and felt as if they were hallucinating. After a long time, he exclaimed in disbelief.
Thank you, Ning Yao.
Listening to the incredible voice of Taisui, Qin Luoshan was more and more sure that what had just happened was how dangerous it was. At the same time, in her heart, she was more grateful to Ning Yao for her sacrifice.
Something happened in it, but we survived anyway.
Tian looked at Taisui, chuckled, and immediately said, What are you going to do in the future?
If you want to leave, I will take you to leave, and then let you go freely.
Wherever you go, if you think it's good here, I can also leave you here.
Tian's words are true.
Although Taisui is really mysterious, a small piece of meat can deliver him from the field of life and death, and he has followed many big murderers and knows many unknowable secrets. But even so, since Tian promised to set him free, he would not eat his words.
For a moment, I felt confused.
When Tian signed the blood contract of life and death, he longed for freedom, but now that he finally regained his freedom, he suddenly felt that his heart was empty and he didn't know what to do. Even when he was in a daze, he could not help thinking, am I born to be a pet? Or is it not comfortable for pets?
Master, I'd better follow you.
Taisui's jelly-like body turned into two hands and scratched towards his body, which made him feel embarrassed.
It's a big circle, and finally it's back to the origin. What's the matter? If I knew that, I might as well give Tian a piece of meat at the beginning, which can also show my loyalty.
Maybe, with Tian's character, I will take the initiative to solve the blood contract of life and death.
Are you sure?
Tian surprised to see 2-year-old One-Eye, stunned way.
Taisui's answer was unexpected.
He thought that before he was too old, he was so eager to release the blood contract of life and death. Now he was free, and he would run wildly. But he didn't expect that this guy finally decided to follow him.
Sure. Taisui nodded dejectedly.
He can see clearly that he is a cheap life to be a pet for others. In this case, it's better to choose a person who is not a pet than to be a pet. It seems that his character is not bad, and he is also a former dandy, and he can leave from the field of life and death. After all, according to Master Joyo, the rhyme field of life and death is a big terror, but it is also a big chance. As long as you leave from it, you may not find it at the beginning, but with the improvement of cultivation, this feeling will become more and more obvious. With such a master, at least the future will not be too bad. Maybe it will be able to reproduce the glory of a few fairies massaging themselves in the past. Well, in that case, you will continue to follow me, but forget about the blood deed. If one day you want to leave, I will set you free. Yi Tian looked at Tai Sui with a bitter smile, shook his head, and assured him. Tai Sui sighs and sighs. He thinks he can't wait for that day. He's used to being a pet. He's really not used to freedom. It's good to be a pet for people. When the sky falls down, there's a master in front of us. If the master is promising, he can follow the popular ones to drink spicy food. Come on, let's get out of here. Seeing this, Yi Tian looks at Qin Luo God and helps her. They walk along the river and step by step out of the rainforest. When he was in the field of the rime of life and death, he almost exhausted his mana in order to protect the god Qin Luo and make the method of changing life for death. At the moment, he has no ability to leave the sword. Even if a prefecture-level ancient warrior comes, he can kill him. Now, he can only choose to walk, and then with the help of Sua Wangguan idea, absorb the aura of heaven and earth, and recover slowly. This is Qingming Taoist formula. Ningyao practiced this method in the past. Now I'll teach it to you. In this way, even if you are in danger, you can still have the ability to protect yourself. On the way forward, Yi Tian teaches Qin Luoshan the secret of Qingming, and asks her to practice. In this way, it will be good for her body to relieve her fatigue now, and she can have more self-protection ability in the future. However, Qin Luo God wrote down the Qingming Taoist formula and tried to cultivate it, which made Yi Tian feel incredible. Qin Luoshan didn't take Huangji pill to wash bones and marrow, but after a simple attempt, magic appeared in his body, and his cultivation reached the level of the cave. This scene let Yi Tian surprised incomparable, Qin Luo God of this entry, as he completely did not expect. Is it hard to say that Qin Luoshan, like Ning Yao, is a genius of cultivation? You know, when she was in Fangsu and Lingyu, Ning Yao was the absolute pride of heaven. I don't know how many so-called fairies in the sect were trampled by her. However, Qin Luoshan and Ning Yao are no longer one. How can such a thing happen again? Could it be that when Ning Yao's spirit stayed in Qin Luoshan's body, it had some influence on her constitution, leading to the present changes? It doesn't seem that hard to practice. I feel so comfortable. At this time, Qin Luoshan, who was full of energy and strength, opened his mouth and said with joy that his tired body, which had fallen into the mire, was suddenly as light and comfortable as floating to the clouds after the cultivation, and his tired feeling was gone. When she opened her mouth, she was surprised to find that her originally hoarse voice had completely recovered as usual. Is it not difficult to cultivate? Yi Tian is dumbfounded. I'm afraid only Qin Luo can say that. She doesn't even accept cutting bones and washing marrow. As soon as she practices, it's a level of cultivation in the cave. Even in the square-inch spiritual realm, it's extremely rare. Take this pill and take it after you go out. It will make you practice faster. Yi Tian didn't specially say how amazing the cultivation speed of Qin Luoshan was. After all, it would be a good thing for practitioners to maintain a self-confident attitude that cultivation is not difficult on the way of cultivation. Qin Luoshan didn't understand, but he took the pill and put it in his pocket. However, after taking the pill, she hesitated for a moment, and carefully extended her hand to Yi Tian's palm. Her fingertips gently probed Yi Tian's fingers. When her skin touched, she could not help but lower her head and blushed. Yi Tian saw Qin Luogod's action, or cannot know her idea, looked at her smile, then held Qin Luogod's hand tightly in the palm. Qin Luogod felt the temperature of Yi Tian's palm, and almost jumped up with joy. Although Yi Tiangang just said that she likes her, there are still some doubts in her heart, but at this moment, her hand is tightly held by Yi Tian, and she feels that she has felt Yi Tian's heart. Although the rainforest is extremely hot, and there are mosquitoes flying around from time to time, which makes people feel very uncomfortable, but Qin Luogod hates to let time stop at this moment forever, so that Yi Tian can hold his hand all the time. I have such a little woman's side. This idea just appeared, even Qin Luogod himself was startled. She thought that she was a very independent girl. She never thought that one day, she would depend on someone to such an amazing degree. In the past, she once heard that no matter how powerful a woman is, she will become a little girl when she is immersed in a very eager love. At that time, she thought this was funny, but now it seems that this is true. Now she is like a little girl who is extremely short of love and wants to spend time with her beloved.
Who? Come out, I don't know how long it's passed.
Tian suddenly stops and looks warily at the vegetation in front of him.
Qin Luotian is still immersed in the touch of two people holding hands tightly.
He is not aware of the outside world at all.
Tian?
As soon as Tian's words fell, a rustle came from the grass in front of him. Then, several young people in camouflage, flashlight in hand and backpack rushed out. The young man in the lead was shocked.
It's you!
Tian stares at the young man and looks at him carefully. He finds that he is the policeman in the ward.
You really came to the rainforest. I didn't find the wrong place. Where did you go one day? I couldn't find you as soon as I went out.
When the policeman saw Tian, he immediately raised his hand and patted his chest with a sigh of relief.
He just wanted to ask about the situation of that day. However, when he saw Qin Luo God beside Tian, he was stunned and pointed to her and said in amazement, Is she the passenger you want to find on the plane?
Yes.
Tian nodded frankly.
My God, the policeman opened his mouth wide, and he was almost dull. He thought that it would be a miracle for Li Dazhuang to survive a plane crash from stratosphere. But who could have imagined that another passenger would survive, and still survive in the tropical rainforest?
If you don't see all this with your own eyes, who can believe it will be true? You too. When the policeman was shocked, suddenly, another policeman looked at the direction of Tian and Qin Luotian, then lost his voice and said, Are you two from Death Valley?
Death Valley? It's a good name. We saw a valley with a lot of bones, but we didn't dare to go. And Tian heard this and said slowly. From the expression of the policeman, Tian can see that for these people, Death Valley, that is, the field of life and death rhyme, is an absolute forbidden area.
If you tell the truth and say it's from there, you will be shocked.
No, these people have to take them away for research. At that time, there would be some trouble, so he would deny it.
Pro God, although don't know why Tian lie, but still clever silent.
Who I wish I didn't go in.
I wish I didn't go in.
You two are lucky. When the policeman heard Tian's words, he sighed and gave a thumbs up to Tian and Qin Luotian. Why, is that place terrible?
Tian Qin looks curious and asks the police.
The field of life and death rhyme is mysterious.
It's very strange that there are such places on the earth. Maybe we can know the reason why Death Valley appears from some local legends.
Terrible? It's not just terrible, it's very, very terrible. The policeman shuddered with fear in his eyes and said slowly, This place is very evil and ominous. Some people say it is the passage to the underworld connecting to the Hall of Hell. Some say it is the legendary Immortal who died here, spilling blood all over the valley, with strong resentment. Therefore, as long as the life enters the valley, it will be trapped in it and eventually become bones.
Passage to the underworld.
Fairyland. Tian's eyes slightly changed, and the police officer's words revealed some information, indicating that there are some similarities between the Chinese legend of Death Valley and Fengsuan spirit realm. Both sides believe that the field of life and death rhyme is related to the death of immortals.
What is immortality? Immortality is immortality.
The field of the rhyme of life and death is the place where immortals die, which makes people think deeply. This valley of death existed long before the Tang dynasty. In the local chronicles, it is recorded in detail that people from nearby villages mistakenly entered the valley during the Tang dynasty, and the whole village entered the valley to search for it. After entering the valley, all the people in the whole village died, and then the local officials completely blocked the valley from entering. Even in modern times, there were records some geologists came to investigate, but they didn't come to a conclusion. At this time, the police officer continued, the Death Valley in western Fujian is just like the Thousand Bone Valley in Namibia, the Funeral Hill in Nevada, and the ruins in Kunlun Mountain. They are places that can't be touched by human resources.
Namibia, Nevada, and the Kunlun Mountains also have such places?
Tian was stunned when he heard the news, and his eyes showed a strong color of surprise. In his last life, he was not very interested in these so-called supernatural forces, so he rarely dabbled in them.
If it wasn't for the police officer, he didn't know that there were so many similar places on the earth. What puzzled him was that the rhyme field of life and death was very strange. Even in the square-inch spirit field, it was rare to see the existence of the rhyme field of life and death in the universe for a few days. I'm afraid it can be counted in one slap. But the Earth is just a small star, there are enough for. Even, this is only what the world knows. Perhaps, there are many similar places that the world does not know. If the field of life and death rhyme is really formed by immortal meteorite, then there are so many death valleys on the Earth, doesn't it mean that the Earth is an immortal meteorite? You two are really lucky that you didn't enter the Valley of Death. Otherwise, I'm afraid all we can find are 2 white bones in the Valley of Death. At this time, the police officer looked at Yi Tian and Qin Luotian and exclaimed. No, we're luckier than you think. We're out of the Valley of Death. It's just Ning Yao who gave me a chance to survive. Qin Luotian listened to the policeman's words and thought to himself, but he couldn't help feeling a little heavy when he thought of the brilliant light and rain he saw before he left the valley. But fortunately, Ning Yao also survived, but fell into a terrible sleep. Although Yi Tian did not say the specific situation, she can guess that it is very difficult to make Ning Yao sober, and the possibility is also very low. Well, that's all. Let's go. We'll take you out. At this time, the policeman who knew Yi Tian laughed at them, and then said to Qin Luotian, how is your body? Are you hurt? Do you need me to call an ambulance to wait outside? No, I'm in good condition. I'm not hurt. Qin Luotian shook his head, indicating that he didn't need such trouble. No injury. Hearing this, the policeman looked at Qin Luotian in astonishment and found that although she had some bloodstains on her body, she seemed to be in good spirits and stood upright. She didn't seem to be injured. After that, he couldn't help but exclaim, I fell down from the stratosphere and didn't get hurt at all. The same is true of the one in the hospital. Your plane is really incredible. I feel lucky too. Qin Luotian echoed, but his eyes turned to Yi Tian. She knew that her good luck was due to Yi Tian. Without Yi Tian, I'm afraid she would have died in the sky at the moment of the plane crash. At noon, the group finally walked out of the rainforest and appeared in the sun. Looking at the bright sun above her head, she felt the hot air and turned it into pure heat. Qin Luo suddenly felt like the second person. When she just fell into the rainforest, she really didn't expect that she could see the sun outside. Moreover, compared with this feeling of survival, what makes her more fortunate is that after this time of danger, she finally reveals her heart to Yi Tian and gets a good response from the other party. This can be seen from the fact that she and Yi Tian have been walking out of the rainforest until now, and Yi Tian has been holding her hand. Miss Qin, we know that you are in urgent need of a rest, but I still want to ask you a few questions. What is the cause of your plane crash? I heard the conversation between Mr. Yi and Mr. Li in the hospital before. It seems that you have been hijacked. What happened to the 2 robbers? And are they alive? At this time, the policeman looked at Qin Luotian with burning eyes and asked in a deep voice. Qin Luotian looks at Yi Tian. After Yi Tian nods to her, she says, we did encounter a hijacking, but I don't know who the 2 men are. As for the cause of the plane crash, it was because the captain resisted. They killed the captain. When they found out that the plane might have an accident, they wanted to plot against me. Then they threatened me with a gun. The gun accidentally broke the cabin glass and was swept out of the cabin by the air. I don't know if they were alive or dead. What she said was half true and half false. The part about the hijacking and the captain was true, but the place where the gun was fired was false. However, the plane had disintegrated in the air. After the crash, it was on fire again, and the cabin glass had been completely scattered. In addition, the 2 mountain people were dead and could not die anymore. It can be said that there was no proof of death, and these police officers could not judge whether it was true or not. Sorry, I didn't mean to remind you of those bad memories. The car is ready. You can leave with Mr. Yi and go to the hospital to have a bandage and then have a rest. We'll investigate again in the next 2 days, and we may need your cooperation to answer a few questions. When the police officer heard that Qin Luotian was about to be plotted, he immediately apologized.
Then he sent Qin Luotian and Yi Tian to the police car and arranged for them to go to the hospital for simple treatment and bandage.
Thank you. I'll cooperate with the investigation. Qin Luotian nodded to the policeman and then went into the capital with Yi Tian. Death Valley, I'll come back.
Kingming's own, one day, I will come here, let you tremble, let you pay the price of bleeding for what you have done, let you these unworthy descendants, understand what is the anger of Laozu. After getting on the bus, Yi Tian looks back at the rainforest, and then perceives the sleeping Ningyao Lingzhong in the lower elixir field. His eyes suddenly pass by a strong killing machine.
Improve your accomplishments.
Only when they get to the 6th floor of the cave can they completely ignore these curfew and make them dare not show their tricks again. However, with the rarity of the Earth's aura and the scarcity of the elixir, it is too difficult to upgrade the cultivation to the 6th level of the cave.
This kind of feeling makes Yi Tian feel extremely unwilling.
You know, when he was in Fengsuan Lingyu, he was never a man to swallow his anger, but now, when he came back to the earth, he was constantly passive because of his lack of cultivation, and people around him often met with danger. However, Yi Tian also knows that cultivation is not a fight between spirit and spirit. When things happen, he can't be so crazy that he rushes to find the field regardless. In that case, he will only fall into a passive position.
Now, the only way is to take a long-term view.
Mirage may be a chance, but the opening time is not yet Yi Tian's size in his heart.
Soon, the two were sent to the hospital.
Yi Tian refused to have a physical examination, while Qin Luotian went to have a physical examination and simply treated the wound.
This examination really surprised the medical staff in the hospital.
When they heard that the survivors of the air crash came to the hospital, they prepared for all kinds of emergency rescue, contacted the blood bank, and specially vacated an ICU emergency room. But whoever thought that after Qin Luotian's physical examination, they were shocked to find that Qin Luotian did not have any serious injuries except some skin injuries. The only internal injury was mild diarrhea caused by drinking dirty water from the rainforest. They survived the air crash, but only suffered a slight skin injury. Except for miracles, these doctors really don't know what words to use to describe today's scene. That's because, beside me, there is a strong man you can't understand. Listening to the whispers of the medical staff, Qin Luotian had some sweet thoughts in his heart.
Miss Qin, I'm glad you're okay. Otherwise, I'll really have to apologize for my death.
When they came to Li Dazhuang's ward, Li Dazhuang saw Qin Luotian and immediately struggled to get up from the bed and said excitedly. Qin Luotian had such an accident, the root of which was his weak protection and inadequate inspection. Otherwise, the danger can be resolved before the plane takes off. No matter how powerful the heaven-level ancient warrior of Qingming sect is, he should not dare to make any drastic action against Qin Luotian, the eldest lady of the Qin family, in public.
Don't say that. I might not have survived without your warning. And to be careful, I have to thank you.
Qin Luotian shook his head at Li Dazhuang and said with a smile.
Thank you?
Li Dazhuang was stunned when he heard this. Some of them didn't quite understand Qin Luotian's words. But the next second, when he saw that Qin Luotian and Yi Tian were holding hands tightly together, his expression immediately changed. A touch of joy appeared in the corner of his mouth. Looking at Yi Tian, he sincerely said, "Congratulations, master and mother." As far as he knows, when he was in the south of the Yangtze River, Yi Tian and Qin Luotian had a clear relationship.
Although they were male and female friends, they kept a distance and didn't make any intimate moves.
But now, two people's hand in hand, it shows that the relationship between them has completely changed from the surface into reality. All this makes him feel happy for Qin Luotian and Yi Tian from the bottom of his heart. Yi Tian is not only his master, but also his life-saving benefactor and his family. As for Qin Luogod, after a period of contact, he also found that she was a very kind girl. He couldn't help feeling happy for the two people who were able to establish a relationship. Mother, hearing Li Dazhuang's words, Qin Luotian's pretty cheek immediately floated a blush of shyness, but there was some sweetness in his heart. Master, I have received a message that there will be a trade fair among mountain people in the suburbs of western Fujian tonight.
Are you going to attend it?
At this time, Li Dazhuang suddenly remembered something, looked at Yi Tian and said.
Fair?
Hearing this, Yi Tian can't help thinking of the trade fair he attended in Lingxiu Peak, and his heart moves slightly.
Maybe the mountain people in the west of Fujian have the elixir they need. And even if they don't, they may be able to learn more about Death Valley. After all, the mountain people know more about these unusual things than the ordinary people like police officers.
Okay, I'll go.
What can I do for you? Yi Tian nodded and asked Li Dezhuang.
If you want to go, at 10 o'clock tonight, go to the Blue Creek Bar in the West City and find a guy named Short Knife, who will take you to the fair. I'm not sure about the specific requirements, but some friends contacted me and mentioned them casually. Li Dezhuang said with some guilt.
No harm.
Yi Tian casually waved his hand, and then said, You are good to heal, Luo got here, you don't have to worry about it for the moment. Li Dezhuang nodded with a smile. When Yi Tian was around, he could naturally have a million hearts.
Time passed quickly. In a blink of an eye, it was 9 o'clock in the evening.
Yi Tian wants to go to the trade fair, and Qin Luoshan also wants to open his eyes.
After thinking about it, Yi Tian takes her with him.
One reason is that for Qin Luo God, his own side is the safest place, the other is that Qin Luo God is now a cultivator, and he really needs to contact some rules between cultivators. Cultivation, not only to be buried in hard work, but also to be tempered.
Half an hour later, in the West City bar.
Yi Tian casually asks the bartender, and then in a box, he finds some strong men with big arms and round waists, playing cards, carrying wine cups and drawing tigers with them. To Yi Tian's surprise, he was in a hot fight with a group of ordinary people. He was naked and had a cigarette in his hand. He threw a beer in front of him. He was more like a gangster than a mountain man. He had the early accomplishments of the prefecture level. This kind of strength, among the people on the mountain, is already very good. A middleman has such accomplishments, which makes Yi Tian look forward to the fair a little more.
I'm going to the fair. Yi Tian sweeps his eyes towards the knife and calmly tells his own appeal. You are late. The quota is full.
After seeing Qin Luoshan, she looked greedily at her beautiful cheek. Then she picked Qin Luoshan with her chin and said with a ferocious smile to Yi Tian, But, Daoyi, I'm familiar and have a big face. As long as you let this beautiful woman sit down with us for a drink, I'll send you too. Hey. Short Knife a language falls, accompanying him to play those strong men, immediately looking at Qin Luo God, eyes obscene, unkind smile.
Qin Luoshan frowned and looked at the knife unhappily.
She didn't like this guy's eyes. When his eyes fell on a place, Qin Luoshan felt that it was like a fly lying on the ground. This kind of feeling let Qin Luo God immediately some worry to leave day behind hide, want to avoid each other's eyes. Beauty is in trouble. Yi Tian listens to the Short Knife's words and shakes his head helplessly. Then he looks at the Short Knife and says faintly, When I'm in a good mood, put away your careful thinking and don't give yourself unnecessary trouble.
Ha, brother Dao, you are despised.
Boy, I've seen a lot of people come to find brother Dao, but you're the first one who dares to talk to him like this. Listening to Yi Tian's words, the strong men at the table laughed wildly as if they had heard Tianda's jokes. Boy, it seems that you are going to propose a toast instead of a fine drink. Short Knife face is also suddenly a black, immediately 5 fingers pinch fist, lightning toward Yi Tian's stomach heavily hit.
I don't like a toast or a fine.
You'd better do it yourself. But before the knife's fist came, Yi Tian raised his hand like lightning, held his neck, and immediately threw him to the ground. He fell down on the pile of beer bottles in the corner of the wall. After smashing all over his body, there were glass fragments and blood stains everywhere. His eyes were indifferent, and he said faintly, Choose yourself, lead the way, or let me help you clear the wine on the ground. What is his cultivation? I didn't have any fighting power in front of him. Short Knife fear of looking at Yi Tian, only feel at the moment in front of Yi Tian, like a demon-like terror. If he had known the strength of the other party, even if he lent him 100 courage, he would not dare to say that to his girlfriend.
It's more than a knife.
The big men who had been drinking and playing cards with him before were shivering all over at the moment.
Like chickens, they looked at Yi Tian in horror.
They thought that the Short Knife was strong enough, but they didn't expect that it was as strong as the Short Knife. When they came to this thin young man, they couldn't even make a move, so they were put on the ground.
Why, have you figured out what kind of decision to make? At this time, Tian looked down at the knife, light way. I know I'm wrong, sir, please forgive me. At the sound of the knife, Lingling shivered and struggled to get up from the ground. He knelt down in front of Tian. Like a chicken pecking rice, he knocked on Tian's head madly. His forehead was broken and his flesh and blood were indistinct. The world of practitioners is so cruel. When Qin Luo God looked at this scene, his eyes could not help changing slightly. He only felt that the difference between the superiors and inferiors of the practitioners was more distinct than that in the secular world. As long as your strength was strong enough, you were God. If your cultivation was weak, you would be trampled on. Take today's event as an example. If Tian's cultivation strength is not strong enough, then I'm afraid she just really wants to give a toast to Short Knife, and even this guy may do more excessive things to himself. Get up and take me to the fair. Leaf Day indifferently swept Short Knife one eye, light way. Yes. After a respectful sentence, he simply wiped the bloodstain on his head. Then he took Tian and Qin Luoshan out of the bar and came to a BMW outside. First he opened the trunk, took out 2 black robes with hoods and a white face, handed them to them and said respectfully, "This fair is an underground fair. It's impenetrable. People who show their real identities and names should wear this kind of clothes." Transvestite underground fair? These mountain people are cautious enough. It seems that in this fair, it is estimated that there will be something rare. Tian's eyebrows slightly picked, nodded to Qin Luoshan, and then put on his robe and mask, hoping more for the fair. Since it's an anonymous fair, why go through you as an intermediary? Immediately, Tian looked at the knife and asked. Many people who attend the fair can't trust others, so they need to find a middleman who can pass the cultivation to check whether they are qualified to participate in the fair. Of course, senior, you don't need any assessment. As he drove, he made a respectful voice, and then added in a hurry, of course, I will follow the agreement to keep the identity and appearance of each participant secret, especially to you too. Even if you don't keep it secret, it's nothing. Leaf Day indifferent smile, calm way. What kind of cultivation is this elder? He is so confident that he doesn't even care about such important things as identity leakage. Short Knife secretly from the rearview mirror to see Tian one eye, the body can't help but excite Lingling to beat a shiver. What are the accomplishments of the participants? What kind of state are you in? At this time, Tian continued to look at the knife and asked. There are prefecture level and heaven level, but very few. Most of my contacts are at prefecture level. As long as I know the location of the fair, I can participate on my own and invite friends to participate. Short Knife respectfully replied. These practitioners are really realistic. They treat people with low accomplishments differently. In their eyes, they are like mole ants. No wonder King Ningzong is so overbearing. Qin Luoshan is slightly tongue-tied. He just feels that even if he hasn't participated in the fair, he has an eye-opening feeling. Master, please come inside. Soon, the car came to a villa on the outskirts of the city. After he helped Tian open the door, he respectfully led the way in front of him. He opened the door, bowed his waist, and made a request to Tian and Qin Luoshan with a smile on his face. The living room was empty. There was only a table in the middle with a candle burning. There were more than 10 stools around the table, almost full of people. And everyone is dressed in the same hood, black robe and white mask. Under the dim yellow candlelight, the fair gives people a feeling of ghost. It's not like a gathering of mountain people, but a gathering of fierce ghosts. Who is this man that should be treated so respectfully by Short Knife? Could it be that there are still 3 people from 6 schools participating in this fair? Seeing the respectful appearance of the knife, a crowd of mountain people in the living room immediately began to make a noise. All people's eyes, almost at the same time, focused on Tian and Qin Luo God. Most of the people who came to the fair had dealt with the Short Knife. They knew that this guy was a kind of rampant character. Even the mountain people whose accomplishments were 2 times higher than him, he didn't pay attention to him. But now, this guy is so respectful that people have to wonder about the identities of the 2 participants. Master, this is the scene of the fair. Can I leave now?
But at this time, the short knife flatters looking at the leaf day, the voice all some shiver way. Along the way, he has been worried that Yi Tian will suddenly attack him after arriving at the trade fair.
Let's go. Yi Tian nodded at will.
He is not a bloodthirsty man. In order to avoid being attacked by fierce soldiers, he has been restraining his desire to kill. The short knife has just paid the price, so there is no need to be cruel. When the door closed, he found that his clothes on his back had been soaked in cold sweat.
That feeling was like walking around the gate of hell. Ladies and gentlemen, no one will come to this fair next, so let's get ready to start. It's still the old rule.
Everyone says what they want to sell, or issues a commission to ask others to help. The participants decide whether to accept it or not according to the promised return. At the same time, as soon as the gate was closed, a man with an old voice moved his hood, got up, looked around and said slowly,
"A commission to help?"
When Yi Tian heard this, his eyes changed slightly. He thought that this fair was just a simple transaction of goods, but he didn't expect to be able to issue a commission. But he can't understand how to make sure that the publisher can fulfill his promise after completing the delegation in such an anonymous fair.
It's my first time to attend the meeting, so I want to ask, if I have completed the entrustment required by others, how can I guarantee to get the promise given by the other party?
But without waiting for Yi Tian to ask, not far away from him, a guy who seems to feel uneasy wearing a mask and even covers his head tightly with a hood is the first to ask. This guy's voice sounds very young.
He seems to be a young man. It's very simple. The person who issues the entrustment and accepts it as an apprentice must sign a blood contract. Each entrustment will set a time limit for adaptation. If the entrustment is not completed within the time limit, the validity of the blood contract will automatically become invalid.
But if the entrustment is completed, but the person who issues the entrustment is unwilling to fulfill the promise, he will suffer from the blood contract's backfire and die until the promise is fulfilled. The voice of the old man, once again slowly speak, word by word.
Blood deed. This way is fair. Yi Tian nodded slightly.
Next, let me put forward the first demand. At this time, the man with an old voice, looking around, said slowly, I need a magic pill. I don't know which one of you can provide it, or a medicine with the same effect as a magic pill if the person who can meet my requirement can put forward any condition to me except that it will lead me to death. Of course, I can also exchange the secret comparable to the elixir.
It's Tian again.
It's probably the biggest problem for many mountain people to break through the barrier of heaven from the top of prefecture level. Yi Tian heard this, sympathy toward the voice of the old man swept his eyes, found that he sent out, is indeed the top of the atmosphere, the heart cannot help but some emotion. However, he was a little interested in the secret that this man said. He was curious about what kind of secret could be compared with Tian.
Your requirement is too high and your promise is too low. Who knows if your secret can be equal to Tian?
At this time, a participant shook his head and said slowly, Yes, if your secret is really of such high value, why don't you take this secret and exchange it with King Ningzong? Next, a woman sitting on the outside also said with a smile.
It's simple. I can't trust them.
The voice old man slowly way.
This guy is smart.
Yi Tian nodded slightly at the sound. According to his knowledge of King Ningzong, if the old man's secret is really so valuable, I'm afraid what King Ningzong will do is to kill the old man without hesitation after learning the secret.
Chen Qingfeng is a good example. Would anyone like to have a replacement with me?
I can make a blood oath to ensure that the secret I give is no less valuable than the Tianlington, or even higher than the Tianlington. The old man continued to look around the field and walk slowly. The words fell, and the room was quiet. No one spoke in response.
Tianlington is extremely precious. Even if these people don't have it, they are reluctant to exchange it for an unverifiable secret.
After waiting for a long time, the old man sighed and slowly sat back to his original position. I want to sell a weapon, a long flame sword and a half-spirit soldier. When I fight against people, I have a 20% probability that I will fly out of the blade and attack them. Of course, there is no doubt about the sharpness of the weapon.
It's easy to cut it with a knife. I'll take this knife and exchange it for Zuyan's hand.
As soon as he sat down, he asked the old man why he didn't go to the woman of Kingmingzong, got up, drew a long knife from under his robe and put it in front of the crowd. The whole body of the sword is dark red. Even in the candlelight, the blade is still shining with dazzling cold light, which makes people have no doubt about its sharpness. Not only that, when the woman waved a long knife a few times, along the blade, there was a nail-size flame, fell on the candle table, and immediately burned a deep hole. This scene immediately made many participants gasp, and their eyes showed the color of emotion. The ability of this flame is really good, and although the 20% probability is lower, if there are several in succession when fighting with people, it may be able to turn the situation around and gain the upper hand. This is Shinfan's weapon of the Blood Shadow sect. How did it come to you? The next second, someone in the crowd whispered and asked in surprise. Yes, I've heard that Shinfang has a long flame sword of a half-spirit soldier. It's very magical. When you fight against others, there will be flames flying out. Some time ago, a friend of the Blood Shadow sect said that Shinfang was missing. Was it? Immediately after that, someone exclaimed, but just half of what he said, he suddenly stopped and looked at the woman in horror. Shinfang's name of Dao Jun was made by this flame Long Dao. Now, the Long Dao has fallen into this woman's hand. Does it mean that the disappearance of Dao Jun has a great relationship with this woman, and even may have died in this woman's hand? Dao Jun is the later cultivation of the prefecture level. With this Dao, it can be said that it is half-step heaven level. To kill such a powerful mountain man, this woman's strength can't be underestimated. Did you forget the rules of the fair and just look at the goods, regardless of the origin? Hearing this, the woman was not in a hurry. She wrote a light sentence as if she had already finished the manuscript. The rule is this rule, and the flame Long Dao is really amazing, but Dao Jun is the mainstay of the Blood Shadow sect. If you buy this Dao, you will inevitably quarrel with the Blood Shadow sect in the future, and even the Blood Shadow sect may ask for it. But soon, someone shook his head slightly and expressed his concern. I'm only in charge of selling. It's none of my business whether I can keep this Dao. The woman calmed down and then said, of course, with the level of a half-spirit soldier, do you think that if it wasn't for these troubles, I would only exchange it for a Zuyanshan which can only help me break through a small realm? Zuyanshan is not only a material for refining Guiyuan pill, but also a great help for mountain people. It can help break through a small cultivation realm. This woman, now in the later stage of prefecture level, should want to go further and break through the peak of prefecture level. However, as a late prefecture level identity, Shinfang, who is half a step away from the sky level, took away his proud magic weapon. It can be seen that this woman's strength cannot be underestimated. Zuyanshan? When Yi Tian heard this, his heart moved. He had a plant on it, but it was a pity that he wanted to use it to refine Guiyuan pill, and it was just a half-spirit soldier. It couldn't get into his eyes. In his storage ring, there were a number of spirit soldiers. Well, is there anyone willing to replace it? The woman seemed a little impatient. She looked around the room and asked in a deep voice. I'll trade with you. A little later, someone got up, took out a brocade box from his robe and handed it to the woman. The one in it was a Shui Yanzhan. This fair is much higher than the Lingxi Yufeng fair last time. So soon, there will be Zuyanshan. Yi Tian hears the sound, can't help but slightly speechless, his eyes show the color of emotion. Since Zuyanshan appeared at the beginning, there might be a better panacea in the future. At this time, the two had reached a deal. After the woman got the Shuiyan cup, she took it on the spot without thinking. Then she broke through to the peak of the prefecture level from the later stage of the prefecture level and left the scene in a hurry. These people are very careful, get things, take them on the spot, in order not to let other people have evil intentions to rob? Looking at the picture, Qin Luoshan was a little surprised. He felt that the world of the practitioners was very different from what he thought. They were not fairies, but more like a group of people licking blood with a knife. Even many people, just like ordinary people, were worried that they could not afford a house, and that they could not get what they wanted. I have a commission here. No, it's not a commission. It's a help. I would like to ask you, who among you has ever encountered the situation that no matter how you hide and dodge, disguise, even if you clean the inside and outside 3 floors, you will still be caught by others? Just as Qin Luotian was thinking wildly, a participant stood up and said slowly, "It's him." When Yi Tian heard this voice, he immediately found that the other party was the young man who, like himself, participated in the fair for the first time. Not only that, what the other party said also made him feel very familiar. The mandala, now Cheng Yuechan, met her for the first time. This is not the case. You mean you want someone to help you get rid of the people who are tracking you? Soon, he was asked by the participants. No, those people don't hurt me. The young man shook his head and then said slowly, what I want is to get rid of other people's tracking, so that those people can never find me. It's not like now. No matter how I dodge, they can know my location. Maybe they will come to this villa soon. You have a chip planted in your body? Soon, some participants racked their brains and asked him. Believe me, this possibility has long been ruled out by me. The young man shook his head, explained, looked at the crowd and said slowly, if someone can help me, I'd like to provide a purple tobacco orchid. Of course, when trading, we should set up a blood contract. If those people can find me after the trading, the blood oath will be launched automatically and the counterattack will be launched. Purple smoke orchid? As soon as the young people's words fell, the people at the fair immediately became restless. Even Yi Tian's eyes are slightly bright. Xian Huilin is also a panacea for refining Guiyuan pill. If he can get it, he will gather most of the panacea for refining Guiyuan pill. As long as he finds Jueiko and Duhongshi, he can refine a Guiyuan pill and break through the 6 layers of the cave. I'll see what's going on for you. But without waiting for Yi Tian to speak, a trader came out and put 2 fingers on the young man's wrist. There is nothing abnormal in your body. Are you sure that the reason why your whereabouts will be revealed is because there is something strange in your body, not because you are not careful and found? A moment later, the trader withdrew his hand and frowned at the young man, wondering. It seems that you don't see any clue. The young man shook his head and said nothing more to the trader. I'll try. Then another trader came out and examined the young man's whole body, but in the end, nothing was found. It seems that you can't help me either. Seeing this, the young man shook his head with a bitter smile and turned to leave. Wait a minute, I'll take a look for you. But at this time, Yi Tian took a step, looking at the young man, calm way. It's no use. You can't help me. Don't waste my time. The young man has been disheartened, shakes his head and is about to leave. Yi Tian had guessed that there would be such a situation for a long time. He didn't say much, but said faintly, mandala. What is it? What does that mean? Traders hear Yi Tian's words, one by one confused, do not understand why Yi Tian suddenly burst out of such a sentence. But when the young man heard the word mandala, his body trembled slightly. He followed him closely. His eyes were fixed on Yi Tian. After a long time, he said slowly, are you sure you can help me? I can make a blood oath with you. Yi Tianping smiles quietly. This way. The young man stares at Yi Tian and then takes him to a separate trading room in the villa. You know Mandala? Where is she now? After the door closed, the young man immediately looked at Yi Tian nervously and lowered his voice. Now she doesn't have to worry that no matter where she goes, she will be found by the prisoners of heaven, so she has a good life. Yi Tian light way. The young man's reaction made him completely sure that this young man, like Mandala, was indeed a prisoner in heaven, and he also wanted to leave heaven. Otherwise, he would not go to the underground trade fair to seek the help of the mountain people. Swear by blood. Listening to Yi Tian's determined words, the young man clenched his teeth, stretched out a hand and said, There's no need for that trouble. Yi Tian smiles indifferently. His mana runs and grabs at the young man. In a moment, there is a light spot in his palm. In a moment, he made a little effort. When he rubbed his hand, the light spot would disintegrate and turn into powder. When the light spot was crushed by Yi Tian, the young man suddenly felt that his whole life seemed to be much more relaxed at the moment. There was a feeling that he used to walk in the mud, but now he was completely separated. It's a success. Although young people don't know how Tian did it, from this strange feeling of his body, they completely confirm that no matter where he hides, he can always be found by the prisoner. Now Tian should have solved the problem. What's your relationship with Mandala? Where is she now? Can I see her? And the light spot just now, what is it? Why is it there? No matter where I am, Tiangong can find me? Closely following, the young man looks at Tian like a barrage of bullets, and asks him in an urgent voice. A kind of Taoist art called suozhou. Tianping explains. Dudu, but before he had finished speaking, there was a knock on the door, followed by a trader's voice. Are you two finished trading? We are going to do the next trading. When the fair is over, let's talk about it. Hearing the sound, Tian looked at the young man, and then said faintly, Can I have the purple smoke orchid? Of course. The young man nodded in a hurry, took out a wooden box from his pocket and handed it to Tian. Sure enough, it's purple smoke orchid. Tian opened the wooden box and found that there was a plant with dark black leaves and a light of lavender smoke. After a long bunch of flowers and spikes, his eyes immediately flashed a touch of joy, and then put it into his pocket immediately. Tian and the young man went out of the room. The deal's over. Go ahead. Tian looked at the trader at the door and said faintly. Their deal was a success. This guy, did he really find something from this young man that other people didn't find? Hearing this, the trader could not help looking at the young man. When he saw that the young man did not leave, but returned to his seat, he couldn't help but stare at Tian's back several times. I don't issue commissions, I don't sell things, I don't exchange things. I want to buy a piece of news. A moment later, the trader scanned the floor and said slowly, I think you've heard that Lu Bufan, the leader of Qingming's sect, suddenly lost all his accomplishments, and Qingming's sect was in chaos. I don't know who knows the specific reason why Lu Bufan lost all his accomplishments, and why Qingming's sect suddenly recovered peace recently, such as nothing happened. Tian smelled speech, immediately to the spirit, eyes burning, looking at the field. Lu Bufan is the first one in the mountain. It's really curious that such a strong man suddenly lost all his accomplishments. What's more, the restoration of peace in Qingmingsong is also related to the reason why Li Muran is superior. He wants to find out who is standing behind Li Muran. After all, as the saying goes, if you know yourself and the enemy, you can win 100 battles. Especially now, his cultivation can't play a crushing role on these mountain people. But after this person's words fell, although the living room was noisy and many traders' eyes changed, no one got up. Most of the people who participated in the underground fair were scattered practitioners, and the news was not well informed. Even if they were well informed, they did not dare to be easily involved in the affairs of Qingmingzong, not to mention the first person in the past. I know the first message, but I can't tell you. However, I can tell you the answer to the second message, but what can you do for me? At this time, the old man who had been looking for Tianlington suddenly got up, looked at the trader and said slowly. Of course, Tianlington can't. The trader saw the old man smile, and then slowly said, If you can answer my question, and make a blood oath, I can give you a 9-tailed grass. 9-tailed grass. Tian's breath became short and his eyes were full of blazing heat. He really did not expect that in this underground trade fair, there were two kinds of magic drugs for refining Guiyuan pill. Deal. The old man nodded, then made a stroke to the palm of his hand, stabbed out a few drops of blood, and then said in a deep voice, Heaven witness, blood is an oath, if I say something wrong, it will make me die. Whoa! A word fell, a few drops of blood suddenly turned into smoke, Strange disappeared. This way. The trader saw the old man's behavior and nodded with satisfaction. Then he took him and rushed to the room where Tian had traded with the young man before. Seeing this, many traders looked at the room and listened, hoping to hear a word and learn the secret behind the big event. Unfortunately, the sound insulation of the room is so good that nothing can be heard. Tian's eyes are as usual, but his mind is like flowing water and enters the room. The reason why Qingmingzong regained peace is very simple, because Lu Bufan's cultivation was not abandoned. At this time, the old man looked at the trader, slowly opened his mouth, word by word. At first, he was shocked.
Lu Bufan didn't lose his accomplishments? Yi Tian was stunned at the sound. How is that possible? When Lu Bufan returned to Qingming Zone, he was seriously injured.
There was no breath of cultivation all over his body.
Countless people witnessed him at that time. How could he not have any problems with his cultivation?
You're lying to me. It's not only Yi Tian, the traitor who bought the news in the room, but also shocked and unbelievable.
Is what the eye sees true? You can feel the cultivation at the top of heaven level, but if it's above heaven level, can you feel it? Why must Lu Bufan's accomplishments be exhausted rather than improved?
The old man smiles indifferently and says slowly.
Lu Bufan's cultivation went further and broke into a stronger realm? Yi Tian frowned slightly.
After his thoughts changed, he found that the authenticity of the old man's words was really high.
The peak of heaven level was once the limit of mountain people.
If we break through this level and return to nature, it's not impossible for us to make our breath the same as ordinary people.
However, if so, how did the old man know the truth? How do you know? Yi Tian doubts that the traitor who bought the news is more curious and asks in a deep voice. Naturally, I have my own source of information. I've been working hard for Tianlingdan. Don't you think that I don't have anyone I can trust in Qingmingzong? With a faint smile, the old man immediately said, and this news will soon become no longer a secret.
The people of Qingmingzong will announce it to the public, so that all the people on the mountain know that the top of heaven is not the end, and Lu Bufan is still the first person in the world. The buyer's eyes are changeable, and he stares at the old man tightly, trying to detect the possibility of lying from the subtle fluctuation of the other party's expression.
I have made a blood oath.
If my news is false, after a period of time, Qingmingzong will not announce this news, the blood oath will naturally bite me back.
Do you think I'll trade my life for a nine-tailed grass?
The old man gave a faint smile, looked at the traitor who bought the news, and then said, I don't care who you are and what your purpose is, but I advise you that you'd better stay away from Qingming's sect, otherwise you will suffer a big loss.
Thank you very much. After hearing this, the traitor confirmed the old man's words completely.
After a moment of silence, he arched his hand to him, and then took out a wooden box from under his robe and handed it to the old man. Inside the box, it was a light yellow plant with 9 ears of wheat on the top.
Thank you very much.
The old man arched his hand to the traitor, put away the wooden box and came out of the room.
The old man's identity is a mystery.
He knows a lot about Qingming's sect, and he is afraid of Qingming's sect.
But since he is eager to get Tianlingdan, maybe he can exchange it from him. Of course, there is his secret of equal value with Tianlingdan, and the truth of what chance Lu Bufan got to break through his cultivation.
After the old man came out, several more people made a deal. In addition to barter, there is even a commission to kill a mountain man named Su Wen, and the reward is also quite rich. It is a magic pill with great attraction for many mysterious mountain people.
This scene makes Yi Tian wonder. He thinks that today's underground fair is really an eye-opener.
Although the scale of the fair is not as large as that of Lingxi Yufeng Fair, it is still better in terms of its rich trading categories and high level.
Who needs what?
At the end of the last transaction, after a moment of silence, the old man looked around and said slowly,
I want to buy news about Death Valley. What I want is inside information. If it's outside legend, you don't have to trade with me.
As for the reward, a magic pill. Yi Tian looked at the field scan, see no voice, clear throat, deep voice.
Death Valley? What do you do in that forbidden area?
I advise you that if you don't think you are dying slowly, you'd better stay away from there. In Death Valley, those who enter the valley are dead and lifeless.
Who can have such inside information about the Jedi?
Everyone knows that there is a big secret in the Valley of Death, but entering the valley is a death. In the past, there was a heavenly level who didn't believe in evil to try, and finally it turned into a white bone in it.
If you don't want to die, you'd better not go to that place.
When Yi Tian's words fell, several local mountain people in western Fujian who participated in the fair immediately shook their heads and thought that Yi Tian's plan was extremely unwise. Qin Luotian listened to these people's conversation, but he was also sweating. She was more and more convinced that if it wasn't for Ning Yao, she and one of Yi Tianzhong would die in the valley. I have some news about Death Valley,
but it's not worth an elixir. If you want to know, I can give it to you for free. It's okay for you to listen to it, so that no one will be greedy for Death Valley and die in it." At this time, the well-informed old man hesitated, got up and said slowly, "Speak quickly." Soon, many participants urged to hear what inside information the old man had. The Valley of Death is said to be the gate of yin and yang and the place of death. I think everyone knows that. But the so-called 10 dead without life is not absolute. I have a collection of local anecdotes in western Fujian. This book was written 200 years ago. According to the records in the book, the villagers who lived around the Death Valley saw a woman walking out of the Death Valley at the beginning. The old man looked around and said slowly, "Someone came out alive? Is that a local villager? How many people have fought to death and entered the Valley of Death, but in the end, there is no other possibility except leaving a white bone in the valley. How can anyone come out of the valley alive?" The old man's words fell, and the traders shook their heads one after another to refute his words. The woman was not a local villager, and the local people could not understand what she said and did. According to the records in the ancient book, what happened after the woman came out of the Valley of Death was like this: in a moment, the woman flew with her sword, and she was no longer seen. That woman is not from the village. Besides, she left by the imperial sword? Is the Valley of Death another channel connecting with the field of Square Inch? And if the imperial sword leaves, it shows that if the record is not a deliberately exaggerated rumor, but a fact, the woman who left is a real practitioner. It's just a family statement. I can't be sure whether it's true or not. But one thing I can be sure of is that if you're okay, you'd better not hang out around Death Valley. Otherwise, there's really something wrong. Don't blame me for not reminding you. The old man did not have the noise in the field of vision. After a light sentence, he turned to look at Tian and said in a deep voice, "I don't know what you are asking about this matter for, but if you want to be good for yourself, you should stay away from the Valley of Death. Even if you find that there is a real Tianji pill in it, don't go near the forbidden area. Otherwise, it will only make another white bone in the valley." "Thank you very much. This elixir is your reward." Hearing this, Tian arched his hand to the old man. Immediately, he took out a porcelain bottle containing Delington and threw it to the old man. He said, "I'm not in the habit of letting others help me. Please take this pill." The old man stared at Tian. After a little silence, he nodded, took the vase and put it in his pocket. This guy is really big. What a piece of trivial news. He took a Delington for it. Looking at this scene, many people around immediately speechless, especially some active, can't help but look at Tian a few more eyes full of thick fortune and greed. Besides, as if Tian had never seen these people's eyes, after a faint smile, the reporter said, "Who has any news related to Death Valley? As long as it's internal and powerful enough, I still offer an elixir with both hands. Sorry, although Delington is really good, I don't have any more information about Death Valley." The old man shook his head, and then said, "And I think that you all know less about Death Valley than I do. In order to break through the sky level, I went to Death Valley to find out, so I collected a lot of information about Death Valley." When the words fell, the participants in the meeting immediately sighed, and many of them were even more depressed. If they had known that someone would want to know something about Death Valley, they would have collected as much information as possible before. But unfortunately, there is no foretold thing in the world. Since we all have no trading plan, let's go first. It's still the previous rule, one by one, leaving each other 3 minutes apart. The old man was obviously the core leader of the fair. Seeing that no one spoke again, he clapped his hand and said, "Leave one by one, 3 minutes apart. This is to track other members for fear that someone will go out, or rob members of the fair." Hearing this, Tian nodded slightly, feeling that the security of the underground trade fair was indeed quite high. Unfortunately, there is no such fair in the South China Sea. Otherwise, it will be a boost for him. After all, he is not omniscient. Some news is not of great significance to these mountain people, but it is quite precious information to him, just like the news of Death Valley just given by the old man. Soon, one trader after another turned and left. A moment later, only Yi Tian, the young prisoner of heaven, Yi Tian and Qin Luotian were left in the huge villa. Who will leave first? The old man looked at the three and said slowly. Wait a moment, old man. I have something to say with him, and I want to make a deal with you later. Hearing this, Yi Tian gives the old man a hug and says with a smile. Deal? The old man looked at Yi Tian in bewilderment, and then said, I've already said all about Death Valley. Heavenly elixir. Yi Tian didn't open his mouth, but his mind was working and he was speaking to the old man. With a sound, the old man's body trembled and his eyes looked at Yi Tian in amazement. In his face, he was full of shock that was hard to hide. He didn't expect that Yi Tian would make such a deal with him. What's more, he seemed very young to listen to Yi Tian's voice, but he was able to use this high-level means of transmitting sound into secret. But there is no doubt that Yi Tian's technique of transmitting sound makes the old man determine the authenticity of the transaction. After staring at Yi Tian, he sits back in the chair beside him and quietly waits for Yi Tian to communicate with the young prisoner. What's your name? What's the relationship with Mandala? Next, Yi Tian looks at the young man and asks calmly. The young man hesitated and took a look at the old man's position. I won't listen to more than half a word about things I shouldn't know. Seeing this, the old man calmed down, then turned around and walked up the stairs to the second floor, no longer disturbing the communication between Yi Tian and the young people. When the young man saw the old man leave, he looked at Qin Luotian again. Just say it, I believe her. Yi Tian sees this, looking at the young man lightway. If even Qin Luo could not believe it, there would be no one in this world that Yi Tianning could believe. My code name is Pharmacist. You can ask Mandala. He is a killer and medical officer in the prison. Now he is in charge of the management of killers in this area. Mandala and I came from a hunter school. We had a good relationship, but later we had different responsibilities, so we had less contact. After she betrayed Tiangong and left, I helped her a little bit, provided Tiangong with some false information, hoping to give her a chance to survive. Hearing Yi Tian's words, the young man first talked about the relationship between himself and Mandala, then excited Lingling to shiver, as if thinking of some terrible nightmare, and then slowly said, not long ago, I found a terrible thing in Minchi base. They are experimenting with killers. Those who have been experimented become very strange. They have become very powerful, but it seems that they have changed a person, and many people are crazy. And I read the list, and I'm in the next round of the list of subjects, and I'm in the front row, so I escaped. Heaven prisoner experimenting with killers? What's more, after the experiment, people become powerful and change? Yi Tian frowned, then looked at the pharmacist, and slowly said, what you said changed a person, is it a big change in character, violent and murderous, or is it a change in literal meaning? It's literally a different person. I don't think they are the people I know anymore. They are not cruel and bloodthirsty. They have become very indifferent. After the experiment, even people with good relationships have become irrelevant. However, those crazy people are very cruel and bloodthirsty. As far as I can see, they will detain these crazy people and then send them to carry out the task of killing each other and killing each other. Pharmacist slowly weigh eyes, is a thick fear and uneasiness. Is a person completely different from the past after being tested? Yi Tian frowned and felt that the things the prisoner had done were beyond the scope of the killer. I was so scared that I escaped. But I didn't expect that the situation I met was the same as that of Mandala. No matter how I escaped, even in disguise, I could still be found by those people. When I was in Minchi base, I once heard about this fair, so I went to find a knife and gave him 500,000 yuan in exchange for the qualification to participate in the fair. I hope someone can help me solve the problem. At this time, the pharmacist continued to tell the cause and effect, and then looked at Yi Tian, nervous and curious, said, the reason why Mandala disappeared completely later, those people can no longer find her hiding place, is that what you helped her solve? Yes. Yi Tian nodded calmly, took out his mobile phone, dialed Cheng Yuechan's phone, and made a few brief remarks. After confirming the identity of the pharmacist, he handed him his mobile phone and said, go to the second floor, ask the old man to come down, and then confirm the situation with her carefully. Thank you very much.
The pharmacist took the call, and when he heard that it was really Mandala, he was very happy. He quickly took his mobile phone and went up to the second floor to replace the old man.
You're going to trade with me?
I want to inspect the goods first. As soon as the old man came downstairs, he looked at Yi Tian nervously and said in a deep voice.
Old man, you think too much.
When I say Tianlingden, I don't trade it with you.
Frankly speaking, I don't have Tianlingden on me.
The leaf day smell speech, lightly smiled to shake head, way.
You're playing with me.
Hearing the sound, the old man's eyes sank and looked at Yi Tian with a tone that was a little more bad.
Don't be impatient, old man.
I really don't have the elixir, but I can refine it as long as you have the materials on hand.
Of course, I won't let people help me or others in vain.
I need you to provide the secret equivalent to Tianlingden, and I need you to tell me where and why Lu Bufan's accomplishments broke through. Leaf Daylight smile not in a hurry, well already ready to say.
How do you know Lu Bufan's accomplishments? You overheard my conversation?
The old man looks Lin, can't believe of looking at Yi Tian. He just didn't see here anyone close to the movement, but Yi Tian unexpectedly still know the truth. This can't help but let him shocked and confused.
Listen to Yi Tian's intonation. How can he have such deep cultivation strength when he is so young? How did I hear that? It's not something you should care about.
Yi Tian looked at the old man with a smile, and immediately said, the most important thing now is whether you are willing to do this deal with me. I can make a blood oath with you and promise that you will fulfill the deal.
Can you make a magic pill? What can I trust you with?
The old man was a little silent and said slowly.
With this.
With a light smile, Yi Tian takes out the red stove from the storage ring, spreads it in his palm and shows it to the old man.
This furnace this.
As soon as the old man saw the red stove, his eyes suddenly twitched. Then he looked at Yi Tian in amazement and said in a deep voice, Are you the descendant of elder brother Chen?
Brother Chen?
Yi Tian Leng for a moment. Even if you understand, the old man said Brother Chen should be the former owner of Dan Stove, Chen Xingfeng. He did not expect that he would meet Chen Xingfeng's former friend here. I'm not his descendant, I just got a chance to get his elixir. Old man, who are you? Yi Tian shook his head and replied. It's a pity that elder brother Chen is full of elixir. You only get the elixir, but not the inheritance.
What a pity. My name is Meng Fong.
I'm brother Chen's best friend. The old man sighed and shook his head. After he told Chen Xingfeng about his relationship with him, his eyes were cold and he gritted his teeth and said, in those days, Qingming's sect was insidious. I pretended to invite younger brother Chen to learn about Dan Dao, but he said that Qingming's sect was the first of the 3 sects and 6 sects, so he didn't want to do anything about it. But who expected that they would go there? He secretly poisoned elder brother Chen with kanwusha and tried to kill him. Although I ran for help, it's a pity that I couldn't find a way to help elder brother Chen detoxify. At that time, elder brother Chen knew that his time was coming and hid his trace.
Since then, I haven't seen him again.
This Meng Fong, who knows so well about the past, seems to have a good relationship with Chen Xingfeng. I'm afraid it's because of Chen Xingfeng's experience that he can't believe Qingming's sect like that. Even if the hope of breaking the heaven level lies in Qingming's sect, he doesn't want to exchange the secret he knows with Qingming's sect. Although you didn't get the inheritance of elder brother Chen, you only got the Danlu, but I hope you can protect the Danlu well. Don't lose the old prestige of elder brother Chen, and let his Danlu shine again in your hands. And at this time, Meng Fong sincerely looked at Yi Tian and said,
Don't worry, old man. I won't let this furnace dust.
Yi Tian nodded, and then said, I have buried the bones of Elder Chen in Feilai Peak in the south of the Yangtze River. If you have time, you can go to Feilai Peak to express your condolence. If you are blocked, just say that Yi Tian asked you to go. You will not be blocked.
Well, thank you, little friend. I will go to mourn for brother Chen.
As soon as Yi Tian's words came out, Meng Fong immediately put his hands in his arms and made a solemn salute to Yi Tian.
Then, if he suddenly realized something incredible, he stared at Yi Tian and said in amazement, Yi Tian. Are you Yi Tian? Old man, have you heard my name? Yi Tian looks at Meng Fong suspiciously.
Looking at Meng Fong, it seems that he is very familiar with the name of Yi Tian. However, except for a few people, no one knows that there is such a person in the world.
Moreover, Mengfang still lives in the west of Fujian province and can't fight with boys. King Mingzong is investigating Xiao Yu. Some of them think that you have a big secret, but my informant is not good enough to have access to more detailed information.
But those who are targeted by King Mingzong have no good end.
You must be careful, Xiao Yu.
The people of King Mingzong are insidious and vicious.
They may not be able to help Xiao Yu, but they may do something to the people around them, so that you can avoid them.
Mengfang sincerely tells the whole story, and then warns Yi Tian.
They've done it once. Yi Tian nodded and said slowly, but his expression was more dignified.
Before Qin Luoshan's accident, he thought it was Li Fan Yuan's private revenge, but now it seems that the matter is more complicated than he thought. The people of Qingming sect should have found that they can also use cloud photography, and they know the Qingming formula practiced by Qingming sect like the palm of their hand, so they have doubts about their identity and origin, so they have to investigate themselves. As for kidnap Qin Luo God, also want to let oneself throw a rat's trap, coerce oneself to comply with their arrangement just. That is to say, Qin Luo's crisis of life and death, in fact, is entirely due to himself.
King Mingzong, it's really damned.
When Yi Tian thought of this, his eyes were cold, and his eyes were full of murders.
This little guy has got rid of a robbery of Qingming sect. Mengfang looks at Yi Tian in surprise.
He is shocked that Yi Tian is so old that he has the strength of fearless Qingming sect. He is also shocked that Yi Tian is so old that he has experienced a sea of blood and blood in his eyes.
Qingming sect is cruel and cautious. If it fails this time, the next time it will be more fierce. You should be more careful.
Although in the heart many don't understand, but Mengfang are sincerely toward Yi Tian remind Wei.
Thank you for your advice.
I'll pay more attention in the future.
Yi Tian nodded to Mengfang, and then said, I didn't joke with you about Tian LinkedIn just now. If you have enough elixirs and dihua, I can make one for you. As for the reward, that's what I just said. If you can't believe me, I can make a blood oath with you. Blood oath is not necessary. I'm a man of fate.
Since you can get Brother Chen's Dan stove, it means that you are not a villain.
I can trust you. Let me have 3 days to prepare for the elixir. As for ground fire, I know where it is. I'll borrow it then.
Mengfang waved his hand, and then said to Yi Tian, your problems, Tianling Dancheng, when I break through the sky level, I will tell you everything.
Good.
When Yi Tian hears the sound, he raises his hand and claps his high five.
In addition, you should be more careful after you go out.
I was just on the second floor, and I saw some movement outside.
It's estimated that some people who don't open their eyes want to attack you and kill you. Do you want to go out with me, those guys, or give me some face?
Next, Meng Fangru thinks of something and looks at Yi Tian Dao.
Kill and steal.
Qin Luo God smell speech, the body trembles, quickly tightly grasped the Leaf Day's hand. She felt that the cultivation world seemed very dangerous before, but unexpectedly, it was so dangerous.
Old people don't have to worry.
If someone does something like this, I will let them understand how to write regret.
Yi Tianping smiles and looks at Meng Fang. This little guy, what a big tone. Meng Fang hears Yi Tian's words, but he doesn't say much. He plans to go out by himself and guard around to see if Yi Tian meets any danger. It's not too late to help him. 3 days later, I'll see you at the West Side Bar.
Meng Fang thinks of it, bows his hand to Yi Tian, and then strides towards the villa. Mr. Yi, Yuechan wants to talk to you. At this time, the pharmacist comes down from the upstairs, holding his mobile phone, and says respectfully to Yi Tiangong. This guy already knows the real name of Mandala. It seems that Mandala can really trust him. Yi Tian heard the speech, nodded, took the phone, said, "What do you want to say to me? How have you been? My mother is well. We're fine. Thank you." Chen Yuechan was grateful, and then said, "Pharmacist is a trustworthy person. You can trust him. And he just told me that Tiangu has a base in western Fujian. Would you like to have a look?" "Of course. Others have been fighting for so many times, but they have to fight back once." Yi Tian nodded without thinking and sneered.
Tian Nong's kidnapping of Xiaoju Cicada is still on his mind. King Mingzong and Taiyiman are just there. After all, he doesn't have enough strength to deal with the top two. But Tian Gong, how can he make them live so smart? Well, be careful. I'll go back to the South China Sea for some more time. Qingyi and my mother should all come. I'll see you then. Chang Yuechan nodded, and then became a little shy. Well, I'll see you then. Yi Tianyan is concise and comprehensive, then hang up the phone, put the mobile phone in his pocket, and take Qin Luoshan and the pharmacist out of the villa. As soon as he got to the quiet lakeside outside the community, Yi Tian stopped and glanced at the towering trees on both sides of the road. He said faintly, "Don't hide, get out."